Chapter 3082. You can say that. She chuckled and dug up a few stalks of spirit herbs under the tree, keeping them in her space. Don't go too far. Just pick around here, Mu Ling shouted. Okay. The few of them answered. After picking some spirit herbs around them, they walked over to rest. Feng Jiao took a sip of water. Seeing that everyone was staring at him, he smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Why don't you look tired at all?" Guaziki curiously inquired. After the battle, in addition to the fact that they had been sprinting, they were all extremely nervous. Their auras were all somewhat unstable. Yet Mu Jiao's countenance was as calm as ever. He didn't even sweat a single drop, and he even had the energy to pluck the spirit herbs. Hearing this, Feng Jiao chuckled. My stamina is good, so I'm not tired. So you're saying that our stamina is not as good as yours? The disciple with the surname Chun chuckled. He looked at Feng Jiao and said, with your small body, you look like a gust of wind could blow you away. But you actually said that your stamina is good. But seeing that you haven't even panted, maybe your stamina is better than ours. Everyone laughed. After resting for a while, they all stood up. Then let's continue moving forward. Try to be as quiet as possible. Even if there are some powerful, ferocious beasts in this area, it's best not to alarm them. Okay. Everyone answered and walked forward together, their footsteps light. But at this moment, the ground shook and they stopped. Xiao Kaiji quickly lay on the ground to listen. After a while, he got up and said, there are more than 10 disciples running this way. There should be a ferocious beast chasing behind them. This ferocious beast is huge. Every step it takes causes the ground to shake slightly. I don't know if it's a ferocious beast from this area. If it's not, I'm afraid that this movement will alarm the ferocious beasts in this area. Hearing this, their faces became serious. Let's go and take a look. With that, everyone rushed towards the direction of the sound. In the dense forest, the weeds that were half the height of a person seemed to have never been stepped on before. The dozen people running in panic looked back as they ran forward. At their height, a 5 to 6 meter tall giant beast was chasing after them. The giant beast's body was covered with hard spikes. It was a 4-legged beast, but it walked on 2 legs like a human. Its 2 hind legs were thick and heavy, and when it stepped on the ground, it made a heavy thud. The ground also sank, leaving a deep footprint. Its front claws were short and small, but they had sharp claws. Its head was also incomparably huge, with a long and sharp mouth, revealing a row of sharp and long teeth. Its eyes were even bigger than fists, and they were bloodshot, incomparably ferocious. Roar! A deafening roar of a beast rang out. As the roar spread out, the powerful pressure formed a sound wave that caused the dozen or so people who were running for their lives to cover their ears and scream. Some of them were tripped by branches and fell into the weeds. The ferocious beast caught up from behind and lifted its huge foot to stomp on the disciples on the ground. The disciple turned around to look and was so scared that his face changed drastically. Relying on his survival instinct, he quickly rolled to the side and rolled down the slope. However, because of this, he managed to keep his life. After the giant beast missed him, it abandoned him and chased after the disciple in front of him. Chapter 3083. The disciple who had rolled down the slope hit a rock and heard a cracking sound. He groaned and stood up from the ground. When he touched his hand, he knew it was broken. He did not escape, but followed closely behind. That giant beast was too strong and could not be killed by one person. However, if more than 10 people calmed down and worked together, they should have a chance of winning. They could only blame themselves for meeting the giant beast when they were unprepared and being chased by it. That was why they ran wildly. They came here to train, not to escape. If they did not face it head-on, this would become their inner demon in the future. On the other side, Mu Ling and the rest were walking towards the source of the sound. When they heard the giant beast roar, their eardrums hurt. However, they steadied their minds and used their spiritual energy to protect them. When they looked up, they were shocked. This beast is so huge. It's at least 5 or 6 meters tall. What kind of beast is this? Why are there spikes on its body? Those are not spikes. They look like its horns. If I'm not wrong, This should be the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon that I've heard of before. It's a level 5 divine beast. Mu Ling said in a low voice and looked at the giant beast with a serious expression. Ironhide Scarlet Dragon, that level 5 divine beast that is invulnerable? Guaziki was shocked, and his expression turned ugly. That's right. Mu Ling nodded. Then what do we do? What are our chances of winning against it? Lin Yushur asked and looked at them. Can we deal with it if we work together? That's hard to say. As Mu Ling said that, he saw more than 10 disciples rushing towards them. They were disciples of the immortal sect. Run! Those disciples also saw them and shouted at them from afar. They did not stop, but sped up and ran forward. That's the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. We are not its match. If you don't want to die, run. Mu Ling and the rest were stunned when they saw them running in the direction of the four-legged, smiling snake. Their expressions changed. Don't go in that direction. Come back quickly. However, how could the panicking people hear what they were saying? They only wanted to get rid of the huge beast that was chasing them as soon as possible. A level 5 divine beast. Moreover, it was the extremely powerful Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. They didn't want to fight it at all. Kai Jiguan, Yu Yushur, go and stop them. Don't let them pounce on the four-legged, smiling snake. Mu Ling immediately ordered. At the same time, he took out his long sword and activated his spiritual aura. He leaped towards the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. Seeing this, Pei Zishuan and the others quickly drew their swords to help Mu Ling. Several of them attacked together, and the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon had no choice but to stop. Although its body was huge, its reaction was very fast. As it dodged their attacks, it also attacked. Fengjiu took a look and saw Gretchen and the rest chasing after those people, while Mu Ling and the rest surrounded the huge beast with swords. One of the disciples chasing after them had one hand drooping weakly, but he still attacked with his sword. Seeing this, she pondered for a moment. If it was a rank 5 divine beast with so many of them joining forces, it was not impossible for them to take it down. However, this rank 5 divine beast was an Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. Its combat strength was extremely strong, and it was impervious to weapons. It would be very difficult for them to win. Chapter 3084. He turned around and hid behind a large tree. As for the people who were attacking the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon, they had no choice but to retreat. The moment they retreated, they saw that Mu Jio had retreated and was hiding behind a large tree. When they saw this, the disciples with the surname Chen couldn't help but feel annoyed. They were all fighting together, but he actually ran behind a tree to hide? What a coward! Mu Ling and the rest felt more at ease with him hiding. After all, their master had instructed them to protect him. Knowing that he was not strong enough, they naturally wouldn't let him fight the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon like they did. If the other party didn't care and charged forward, they would have to split their attention to protect him. That would be even more troublesome. Their preconceived notions made them think that Fengjiu needed someone to protect him. Hence, no one saw that Fengjiu, who was hiding behind the tree, was currently grinding some small pills together to make a new pill. She peeked her head out to look at the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon and saw that the disciple whose hand was hanging limply was sent flying by the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. With a bang, he crashed into a large tree and fell to the ground. That person groaned and blood flowed from his mouth. He wanted to stand up again, but he fell back down powerlessly. Seeing that the place where the person fell was near the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon, and with Mu Ling and the rest sword chi, she was worried that he would be injured by the sword chi and the huge dragon. Hence, in a flash, she dashed towards that person and dragged him back behind the large tree. Seeing Mu Jio come out, Mu Ling and the rest felt their hearts skip a beat. However, when they saw that he had dragged the injured person to a safe place, they couldn't help but relax and continue fighting the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. However, due to the disparity in strength, even if the 8 of them attacked together, they were quickly injured by the dragon's claws. Their bodies were covered in bloody wounds. Fengjiu took out a small bottle from his space. He opened the bottle and dripped a few drops of medicinal liquid into the crushed pills. After he stirred the liquid, he kneaded the crushed pills together to form a black pill the size of a quail's egg. Screams rang out as Mu Ling and the rest were sent flying by the iron-hide scarlet dragon. They all fell to the ground injured, blood flowing from their mouths and their faces as pale as paper. Bang! The iron-hide scarlet dragon took a step forward and stomped down heavily, causing a huge footprint to sink into the ground. Seeing that the iron-hide scarlet dragon was about to stomp down on Pei Zixuan, who was lying on the ground, the faces of the people scattered around immediately changed. Zixuan, run! Pei Zixuan's face was pale. He tried to move his body, but because he was struck by the iron-hide scarlet dragon's palm, he suffered quite a few internal injuries, and even moving was difficult. He couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile. His voice was weak as he said, "I can't move. I can't muster up any strength." If he could escape, why wouldn't he want to? However, just as he was about to lose all hope, he saw a small and skinny figure dashing towards him at lightning speed. Lying on the ground, he was slightly startled. Mujio? Why did he come out? Was he not afraid of death? Feng Jiu quickly flew out and arrived beside him in a flash. He hurriedly pulled him out before the iron-hide scarlet dragon's foot landed. He directly brought him behind the big tree and laid him down side by side with the cultivator from before. Chapter 3085. As she spoke, she took his sword. Before he could even open his mouth to stop her, she had already rushed out and attacked the iron-hide scarlet dragon. When Mu Ling saw that he had actually rushed forward with the sword alone, he could not help but break out in a cold sweat. Mujio, do you want to die? Quickly go back. Quickly leave. You can't defeat that iron-hide scarlet dragon. When the others saw this, they were also shocked. They originally thought that he was hiding out of fear, but they did not expect that he would rush out to meet the iron-hide scarlet dragon at such a crucial moment. However, if the few of them could not defeat the iron-hide scarlet dragon together, how could he do it alone? Feng Jiu did not care about them. Instead, he held his sword and used his spiritual energy to slash down. However, when the sharp sword slashed down, only a clanging sound could be heard. The sword did not even leave a mark on the iron-hide scarlet dragon's body. Indeed, its outer skin was very hard. If such an outer skin was used to make a defensive armor, it would be extremely good. However, it was difficult for swords and sabers to injure it. It was indeed very troublesome. Roar! The iron-hide scarlet dragon roared angrily. It sounded like a sound wave that spread out. The powerful pressure caused everyone to have a splitting headache. The injured people who were already lying on the ground screamed and covered their ears as they fainted. Feng Jiu had an ancient pressure in her body. Although her strength was suppressed, the pressure still existed. Thus, the iron-hide scarlet dragon's pressure and voice did not have much effect on her. However, it was not very possible for her to use her pressure to suppress it. Seeing that the situation was getting worse and that they were all screaming and fainting, she gritted her teeth and stepped off the iron-hide scarlet dragon's body. She jumped into the air and tried to stab the iron-hide scarlet dragon's eyes with the sword in her hand. However, the iron-hide scarlet dragon's reaction was extremely fast. It seemed to have seen through her intentions. Its bloodthirsty eyes shot out a ferocious light, and its body quickly dodged to the side. It lowered its head slightly and used the sharp horn on its head to stab Feng Jiu. Following that collision, the force was accompanied by a powerful wind blade, forcing Feng Jiu to retreat. It was indeed troublesome to have her strength suppressed. If her strength was not suppressed, what could this level 5 divine beast do to her? Human, you overestimate yourself. The iron-hide crimson dragon's majestic and bloodthirsty voice rang out. At the same time, it swung its front claws at Feng Jiu. The claws swept through the air and cut down a large tree, causing it to fall with a loud crack. As Feng Jiu dodged, he couldn't find a chance to throw the pill into the mouth of the iron-hide scarlet dragon. From the very beginning, she had never thought of fighting with this huge, vicious beast. In terms of strength, it was impossible for her to win. However, if she used medicine, she was confident that she could defeat it. However, the prerequisite was that she had to have the opportunity to throw the medicine into its mouth. However, even though the iron-hide scarlet dragon was roaring, it did not fully open its mouth. Furthermore, its dense set of sharp teeth were blocking the way. If he wanted to throw the pill into its mouth, he would have to give it a painful blow before he could have a chance. The Ironhide Crimson Dragon's only weakness was its eyes. Seeing the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon closing in on her step by step, she gritted her teeth and once again leaped into the air. The Ironhide Scarlet Dragon guarded its eyes very carefully. It did not give Fengjiu any chance to get close, and it tried to kill her again and again. Chapter 3086. Fengjiu turned around and saw this scene. His eyes flashed, and he decided to take a risk. After discovering the danger, she did not quickly dodge. Instead, she infused her spirit force into the sword in her hand and slashed at the sharp teeth. Kacha! Kacha! A few of the sharp teeth were knocked off by Fengjiu's sword. The Ironhide Scarlet Dragon seemed to be stunned for a moment. It looked down at the dragon teeth that had fallen off and immediately became furious. Human, I'll tear you apart. Its whole body pounced forward, and its claws reached for Fengjiu. Fengjiu didn't retreat, but went forward. She stood at the nose of the beast and stabbed the sharp sword in her hand at the beast's eyes at a speed that was too fast for the ears to cover. Whoosh! Ah! The sword stabbed in and blood splattered all over Fengjiu's body. The Ironhide Scarlet Dragon screamed and shook its head. It reached out to grab Fengjiu. At this moment, Fengjiu took this opportunity to slide down. He finally threw the pill in his hand into the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon's throat. Ah! Something was thrown into the Ironhide Crimson Dragon's mouth, but it didn't even have time to spit it out before it swallowed the medicine down its throat. It only felt a burning sensation in its throat, as if it was being burned by fire. What did you give me to eat? What did you give me to eat? The furious Ironhide Red Dragon waved its claws to block the attack. A powerful and sharp air current accompanied its claws, cutting the surrounding trees into pieces. Fengjiu had already retreated quickly after throwing in the medicine, leading the Ironhide Red Dragon to the other side to prevent the Ironhide Red Dragon from hurting the unconscious people on ground. Roar! Roar! Screams and roars rang out in the forest. Iron-skinned Red-skinned, who had been chasing Fengjiu, fell to the ground with a thud. They rolled on the ground and screamed miserably. Their screams caused the surrounding air to tremble and even the ground to shake slightly. Fengjiu stood in the distance and coldly watched. She watched as the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon rolled on the ground and screamed. She watched as blood seeped out of its 7 orifices. Only when its body finally became stiff and motionless did she walk over. After a careful examination and confirming that they were dead, he quickly went to the disciples and helped them up one by one. He placed them behind the tree where the 2 of them had been and checked their injuries. Fortunately, it's not very serious. They just couldn't withstand the sound waves and fainted. She let out a sigh of relief. If their injuries were so serious that they couldn't continue, then she could only crush their jade tokens and send them out. She took out her silver needles and pricked their acupuncture points to stimulate their nerves and let them slowly wake up. Finally, she kept her silver needles and went to the disciple with a broken arm. After checking, she picked up a tree branch and flattened it to fix his broken arm. Only then did she bandage it to fix it so that it wouldn't shift again. When Mu Ling and the others woke up, they saw Mu Jiu bandaging a disciple covered in blood. Seeing him covered in blood, Mu Ling was shocked. Mu Jiu, you're injured? Fengjiu turned around and saw that they were all waking up. She smiled and said, No, it's not my blood. It's that Ironhide Scarlet Dragon's blood. She looked at the place where the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon had fallen. Chapter 3087. They looked in shock at the huge beast that was lying motionless on the ground and suddenly turned to look at Fengjiu. You killed it? Fengjiu thought for a while and said, You can say so. How did you kill it? With your strength alone? Disciple Chen looked at Fengjiu in disbelief. I mixed a few poisons together and made a pill, then let it eat it. It died when the poison acted up. Fengjiu said simply. When the few of them heard this, their hearts were in turmoil. Mu Jiu made it sound so easy, but they knew that it was not easy to make the iron-skinned scarlet dragon open its mouth and swallow the poisonous pill. Furthermore, it was a fifth-level divine beast, and its body was so huge. It was not something that could be killed by any ordinary poison. Mu Ling and Pei Zishuan supported each other and stood up. They walked over to the ironclad scarlet dragon on the ground to take a look. When they saw that the ironclad scarlet dragon's eye had been stabbed, they couldn't help but look at each other. It seemed that they had underestimated Mu Jio's strength. The others stood up as well, clutching their aching chests as they walked over. When they saw the fallen ironhide scarlet dragon, their hearts froze. They could not help but turn around to look at the young man who was covered in fresh blood. Their hearts were secretly shocked. Seeing that they were all looking at him, Fengjiu thought for a while and asked, "Should we go and find Guan Yu and the rest? They have been gone for a long time and haven't returned. I don't know if something happened to them." Guan Yu and the other two who chased after those people had not returned. She was worried that something might have happened. After all, there was the four-legged smiling snake guarding there. If they couldn't stop them, and those disciples rushed into the four-legged smiling snake's territory, then, hearing this, Lin Qingjin's expression changed. Thinking that his sister was there, he immediately said, "Let's go and take a look. Let's go." Everyone responded. Just as they were about to go back, they saw Lin Yushi and Guan Yu supporting Su Kaiji walking over. Brother, eldest senior brother. Senior brother Su was bitten by the four-legged smiling snake. "What do we do? What do we do?" Lin Yushi hurriedly called out when she saw them. She was so anxious that her eyes were slightly red and her mind was in a mess. When everyone saw that apart from the three of them, they did not see anyone else, and their hearts could not help but sink. They quickly went forward and helped Fei Kaiji to sit under the tree. At this time, Fei Kaiji's lips had turned black and he had fainted. We fed him a detoxification pill, but it didn't seem to have any effect. Gretchen said, looking at Su Kaiji worriedly, "Will he die? Would he die? Even if we send him out, I'm afraid that even Master won't be able to save him in time." "Let me take a look." Fengjiu walked up from behind and bent down to examine the wound, asking, "Where's the wound?" "It's around the calf." Gretchen hurriedly lifted up Su Kaiji's robe and rolled up his trousers, revealing the swollen red and purple wound. Seeing this, Fengjiu frowned. "Lay him flat on the ground. You guys back off a little." As she spoke, she took out a small knife and slashed at the wound, creating a cross-shaped wound. Pooh! Black poisonous blood splashed out and sprayed onto the weeds at their feet. The weeds immediately withered, shocking everyone. This poison is actually so powerful. Chapter 3088. Mu Jio, will senior brother Kuang die? Lin Yushi asked worriedly. "He won't," Fengjiu said as she took out an antidote pill and stuffed it into Kuang Kaiji's mouth. Although the antidote pill you gave him did not cure the poison in his body, it slowed the poison down and entered his heart meridians. Therefore, he can still be saved. As she spoke, she took out silver needles and pricked Kuang Kaiji's 10 fingers, squeezing out the blood until it was bright red. Only then did she stop. When he saw the silver needles in Fengjiu's fingers, Pei Zishuan's eyes flashed. It was indeed him. The person who saved him was indeed Mu Jio. He really hid his skills well. Normal people could not cure the poison of the four-legged smiling snake. They were all disciples of aristocratic families and were the direct descendants of the large families. They were specially nurtured. The antidote pills could only alleviate the poison, but could not cure the poison of the four-legged smiling snake. But Mu Jio's pill could cure the poison. How powerful was that? Was he really a disciple of Venerable Mu Xian? Was he really a disciple of the Mu family? At this moment, he could not help but have a trace of doubt in his heart. To be able to kill a level 5 iron-skinned red dragon and cure the poison of the four-legged smiling snake. To be able to remain calm and not be alarmed. How could such a person be an ordinary person? They were the next successors of their families and disciples that were highly valued by their master. If they could not even see through this, then they did not have the right to be called geniuses. After sorting out his emotions and suppressing his doubts, Mu Ling looked at Gretchen and the rest. He was about to ask where those people went when he heard the disciple with the broken arm ask anxiously, "Where are they? Where did they go? Are senior brother and junior brother in danger?" Hearing this, Gretchen's face turned cold. She stood up and stared coldly at that person, but did not speak. It was as if she had a stomach full of anger. Seeing this, Mu Ling asked, "Gretchen, what happened?" Seeing that it was him who asked, Gretchen took a deep breath and said, "Senior brother Mu, we chased after them to stop them, but they didn't listen to us. They kept running forward and rushed into the area where the four-legged smiling snakes were. We managed to hold them back, but when they saw the four-legged smiling snakes, they immediately ran back, causing the four-legged smiling snakes to surround us. When they saw that there was no way out, they actually crushed their own transportation jade tablets and left this mystic realm." At this point, Gretchen's expression turned cold as she continued. "The remaining three of us fought our way out of the encirclement. Senior Marshal Brother Kwong was bitten in order to save Yushir and me. We turned back and brought him away from that place. Fortunately, those four-legged smiling snakes didn't dare to chase after us. Otherwise, all of us would have died there." Hearing this, the disciple with the broken arm opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. In the end, he only said, "I apologize on their behalf." "This is not your problem," Pei Xuan said, indicating that he did not need to be like this. "Senior brother, that Ironhide Scarlet Dragon was killed by you guys?" Gretchen's gaze landed on the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon lying on the ground in front of them. Such a huge beast was actually killed by a few senior brothers just like that. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and smiled at Mu Jio, who was looking down at his blood-stained robes. "It was Mu Jio who killed it, not us." Gretchen and Lin Yushir were slightly startled and looked at Feng Jio in astonishment. Chapter 3089. Quick look. There's a level 5 divine beast here. Hiss. It's an Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. The sudden sound attracted Mu Ling and the rest to look in that direction. They saw more than 10 men and women dressed in green walking towards them. They were pleasantly surprised as they surrounded the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon that had fallen to the ground. This level 5 divine beast crystal is good stuff. A man exclaimed in surprise and climbed up to dig out the fist-sized beast crystal on top of the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon's head. If this Ironhide Scarlet Dragon skin is used to make armor, it will be invulnerable. And this hiss. A gasp was heard, and the surrounding crowd was stunned. They looked up and saw the male disciple who had climbed up to dig out the beast crystal turn back with a trembling hand. Who's stabbing us in the back? There was a silver needle stuck in the back of his hand, and that needle had pierced the tendons on the back of his hand, causing his entire hand to be in pain and numb. This Ironhide Scarlet Dragon is ours. Feng Jie walked out and said in a calm voice. Mu Ling, Pei Xuan, and the rest regained their senses and immediately surrounded them. "Come down. This is our prey." For a moment, the two sides were in a stalemate. The people standing in front of the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon sized up Mu Ling and the others, then laughed. "Yours? What a joke. You think you can kill an Ironhide Scarlet Dragon with just a few of you?" The person who spoke looked at them from the corner of his eyes and said in a threatening tone, "Furthermore, we found it and it's our prey. Who dares to snatch it from us?" "Oof. You're going overboard." Mu Ling stared at them and said in a low voice, "We're not trying to snatch it from you. You're the ones who want to snatch our prey." "So what?" The disciples looked at Mu Ling. "You want this Ironhide Scarlet Dragon? Can you beat us?" As he spoke, he glanced at the dozen or so people. "That's right, can you beat us? You dare to snatch our prey? Do you want to die? Ha! If you dare to fight us, don't blame us for not showing mercy. If you don't want to be beaten up, then leave quickly. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." Hearing those words, Mu Ling and the others' faces turned ugly. There were 18 people on the other side, and all of them were cultivators at the peak of the nascent soul stage. On their side, except for him, Pei Xuan and Lin Qingjin, who had reached the peak of the nascent soul stage, the others were either at the middle or early stage of the nascent soul stage. Moreover, they had just gone through a fierce battle and were all injured. If they were to fight, they would definitely not be their match. However, they couldn't just watch them take away the prey that should have belonged to Mujio. Fight it out with them. I don't believe that I can't beat them. Gwaziki gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, ready to step forward. The others also gripped their swords and prepared to fight. Seeing this, the other party sneered and also prepared to fight. However, at this moment, Fengjiu, who had been silent all this while, glanced at those people and said to Mu Ling and the rest, "Are you all tired? Let's go to the side and rest." Rest? They were startled and frowned, but that iron-hide scarlet dragon, that was a prey that he had obtained with great difficulty. So how could he give it up so easily? Chapter 3090. Give it to them, but Gwaziki wanted to say something, but saw Fengjiu walk to a nearby tree and sit down. Seeing this, Mu Ling and Pei Zishuan couldn't help but look at each other. Give it to them? Why did they feel that Mu Jio wouldn't hand over his prey to others? But seeing that he didn't say anything, they didn't say anything either. They just said, "Let's go." They helped Su Kaiji, who was unconscious under the tree behind them, to the place where Feng Jio was sitting. They thought that he had changed his position because there was the smell of blood there. Hence, they didn't think too much about it. They sat down under the tree and saw Mu Jio pick up some branches and start a small fire. They were puzzled as they saw him take out a round biscuit and roast it in the fire. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Mu Ling and the rest thought that he was in a bad mood and said apologetically, "Mu Jio, we're sorry." Being in the same team as them, not only did they fail to protect him, they even lost the prey that he had painstakingly killed. They had really let down their honor master. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "There's nothing to be sorry about. Don't mind it. Sit down and rest for a while." The disciples guarding the iron-clad dragon saw that they didn't dare to fight with them and couldn't help but laugh. "Cowards! I thought that you would dare to fight with us, but I didn't think that you don't even have the guts to fight. Brothers, don't bother about them. Let's quickly take the useful items from the iron-clad dragon and split the skin." As these people spoke, their words were filled with smiles and excitement. They did not take Mu Ling and the others seriously. After all, the disparity in strength between them was obvious. Even if they wanted to fight, they would have to see if they could defeat them. Mu Ling and the others sat there and watched. Their hearts were still filled with anger. They had been injured so badly by the iron-clad dragon, and in the end, the prey had been snatched away by others. They couldn't take it lying down. The cool breeze blew gently. Fengjiu was still baking the pancakes with a serious expression. She didn't even look in that direction. She fanned herself with her sleeves, and, as the smoke dispersed, the aroma of the pancakes filled the air. As time passed, cheers could be heard from the other side. It turned out that the iron skin of the iron-hide scarlet dragon had been peeled off. However, at this moment, this iron-hide scarlet dragon's tendon is also a rare treasure. Which one of you has better saber techniques? Take out the dragon tendon. Let me. He shook his head and said, "Strange, why do I feel like my head is a little?" Before he could finish his sentence, he fell to the ground. "My head too." Bang, bang. One by one, they fell down without any warning. It was so fast that it was shocking. Mu Ling and the rest were shocked. They stood up instinctively. "What's going on?" But at this moment, Mu Jio took out some water to extinguish the fire and threw the pancakes into the fire. He stood up and clapped his hands. "I use some medicine. We don't have to waste energy fighting with them, and we can also get them to help us peel off the skin of the iron-clad dragon. We killed 2 birds with 1 stone." As she spoke, she smiled at the stunned crowd and walked up to them. She took all their space rings and other things before crushing their teleportation tablets. Chapter 3091. Looking at this scene, Mu Ling and the others were all dumbfounded and couldn't react. Robbing the treasures of those peak, nascent soul stage disciples, and then crushing their teleportation jade to cut off their training in the mystic realm. It had to be said that this was too ruthless. However, what they didn't expect was that after Mu Jio crushed the teleportation jade tablets of those disciples, he took out a small knife and went forward to pick out the dragon tendon of the iron-hide red dragon. I'll take this beast crystal and this dragon tendon. You guys can divide the rest. Feng said, and put away the two things. Of course, she also put the treasures of the more than a dozen peak Yuanying stage disciples into her space. Seeing him so valiant, the others didn't dare to say a word of objection. Moreover, they couldn't object at all. Everything was done by him, and the trouble was also solved by him. Now that he even divided the prey among them, what else could they say? Nothing could be said. This, Mujio, this is the prey that you killed. Why don't you keep all these for yourself? They didn't do anything and really felt embarrassed to take his things. Everyone has helped. I've already gotten 2 good things. I can't take all the good things. She chuckled and said to them, you guys hurry up and divide the things in case some other people come and fight over it. Hearing this, Mu Ling and Pei Zixuan looked at each other and nodded. All right, then let the 2 of us divide it. The 2 of them distributed some of the ironhide dragon skin to each of them and collected the valuable items. Finally, they burned the rest of the ironhide dragon's carcass. As the flames burned, the huge ironhide red dragon was left with a pile of ashes. Because the ferocious beast in this area had been killed, this place was relatively safe. They were not in a hurry to leave. They planned to rest here for the night and continue their journey tomorrow. I'll walk around and see if there are any spiritual herbs to pick. You guys rest here. I'll be back in a while. Feng said, and prepared to walk around this area and pick some spiritual herbs. We'll go with you. Gretchen and Lin Yusher stood up. No need, you guys should rest for a while too. Don't worry, I'll be back before dark. Seeing this, Mu Ling and the rest said, then be careful. Don't go too far. Remember to come back before it gets dark. Okay, I got it. She smiled and went to look for the medicine alone. Seeing Mu Jio walk away, the men with the surname Chun couldn't help but ask, Mu Ling, is this Mu Jio really from your clan? How? How could he be so powerful? Looks like he's stronger than you. One couldn't blame him for thinking this way. When they were in danger, it was Mu Jio who had saved them. In addition, Mu Jio had cured Su Kaiji's poison and saved his life. And before that, Mu Jio had quietly dealt with those dozen people and even plundered their treasures. No matter how he looked at it, he didn't seem like a disciple of their immortal sect. They looked like bandits. Hearing this, Mu Ling smiled and said, yeah, he's a member of my Mu clan. My master said it himself. How could he be wrong? Chapter 3092. Mu Ling laughed bitterly in his heart. If there was such a person in the Mu family, how could he not know? But before this, he did not know that the Mu family had such a person like Mu Jio. Moreover, how long had it been since they entered? After only a day of interaction, he had roughly figured out that Mu Jio was definitely a person who hid his strength well. All right, let's all rest. We will rest here tonight. Arrange for people to take turns to keep watch. Those who are injured, quickly sit cross-legged and recuperate. As Pei Zixuan spoke, he looked at them with a serious expression and said, we have just entered today, and we have already suffered such heavy losses. We have to reflect on this problem. We have to train here for 3 months, and no one knows what we will encounter in these 3 months. However, we will not be so lucky every time. We have to be mentally prepared. His words made everyone fall into deep thought. This time, they had encountered a 5th-level, god-level ironhide scarlet dragon. If Mu Jio had not used medicine to subdue it, they would have all died under the sharp claws of the ironhide scarlet dragon. There were also the disciples from the other celestial sects. If they had rushed up to fight with them, they would have suffered a crushing defeat. In an instant, everyone's expression turned serious. Unknowingly, Mu Jio seemed to have become their backbone. A youth who everyone thought was weak and in need of protection had become the person who protected them. This made them feel a little ashamed. On the other side, Feng Jio was picking spirit herbs in the surroundings. Due to the ironhide scarlet dragon's presence in this area, very few people and ferocious beasts came here. The number of spirit herbs that survived was also higher, especially when she occasionally found a rare and precious spirit herb. However, she had come out to look for spirit herbs in this area. Secondly, she wanted to find the ironhide scarlet dragon's cave. She felt that there would definitely be precious spirit herbs in the ironhide scarlet dragon's cave. Although this area was densely covered in trees and weeds, the iron-hide scarlet dragon was a huge beast, and it was not difficult to find its cave. As expected, after searching carefully, she found a cave. The entrance of the cave was huge, and there were no weeds growing in front of the cave due to frequent walking. There were only 2 large trees that partially covered the entrance of the cave. As she walked inside, she released her divine sense and paid attention to the movements in the cave. After entering, she found that there was not a single hole that went straight to the bottom. Instead, there were 2 more holes on the left and right. They turned left and right and led deeper into the cave. Because there was no light in the cave and it was pitch black, she was not in a hurry to go in. Instead, she took out the night pearl and carefully checked the 3 entrances. Finally, she found footprints on the ground near the left entrance of the cave. Only then did she walk in. The luminous pearl in his hand illuminated the cave, making it as clear as day. She walked deeper into the cave. Not long after, she encountered another forked cave entrance. She looked around carefully and finally chose another cave to walk into. After turning left and right, she arrived at the innermost cave. As soon as she entered, she was dazzled by the mountain of treasures and crystals. There are actually so many treasures. Chapter 30-93. What a fortune! So many crystals and treasures. Where did he get them from? She walked forward to take a look and couldn't help but grin. With a flick of her sleeve, she collected all the treasures into the space. She walked around inside and made sure that there was nothing else useful before leaving. Walking outside, she was in a good mood and could not help but hum a tune. She plucked some spirit medicine, planning to bring it back for the disciple who had lost his hand. Perhaps it was because of the death of the 5th-rank divine beast, the iron-hide scarlet dragon. Some small beasts came running out. She caught 2 snakes and stuck them on a tree branch before walking back, intending to use them to make a pot of snake soup. On the other side, Mu Ling and the rest were roasting meat. The smell of meat was gradually wafting out. Seeing that the sky was getting dark and Mu Jio had not returned, they could not help but worry. Did he go too far? Could he have gotten lost? Probably not. Mu Jio does not look like someone who would get lost, Lin Xingjin said with a smile. As he roasted the meat, he smiled and said, he would be back before dark. Maybe he's on his way back. As he said that, he heard Guiziki laugh. Look, he is back. Everyone looked over and saw Feng Jiu walking over with a tree branch on her shoulder. Behind the tree branch were 2 snakes. Everyone was stunned. She want to catch snakes? Mu Jio, why did you catch snakes? Guiziki shouted and asked. I thought it would be cold at night in the forest, so I caught 2 snakes to make snake soup to warm everyone up. As she spoke, she had already arrived in front of everyone and put the 2 snakes aside. Making soup? All right, I will do it. Lin Xingjin stood up and hung the 2 snakes on the tree. As he was about to skin them, he suddenly turned back. That's not right. We did not bring a pot. Hearing that, Feng Jiu laughed. I have one. She took out a pot from her space. Seeing this, Lin Xingjin looked at her deeply and said, Mu Jio, I did not expect you to bring a pot when you go out. Looks like you do go out often. I don't like to eat fasting pills. I like to eat grains and meat, so I always bring everything with me when I go out. She smiled and sniffed the barbecued meat. It smells really good. I'm glad you like it. I baked it. Lin Xingjin smiled and began to skin the snakes. After dealing with the 2 snakes, he shouted, Ziki, make a small fire. We can make soup later. All right, Guiziki replied and also started to help. I've gathered some spirit medicine that can heal broken bones. Once I've finished refining it, I'll wrap it up for you. Feng Jiu said to the disciple who was sitting at the side, supporting his arm. That disciple was startled and somewhat surprised. He looked at Feng Jiu and said gratefully, Many thanks. Feng Jiu smiled and walked to the side. She crushed the spirit medicine and mixed it together. Then, she used the fire to boil it into a paste. Only then did she bandage the disciple again. After using a tree branch to fix the broken arm, she tied a piece of cloth around it. Then, she wrapped the cloth around the neck and broken arm so that he did not need to support it. She then said, "All right, you have to change the medicine once a day. It will heal faster. Keep this ointment. It's very effective in healing broken bones." She packed the rest of the ointment and handed it to him. Chapter 3094. "Sure," Mu Ling said with a smile. "We're all disciples of the cerulean planet. We should take care of each other here. Since you're alone, you can come with us." Hearing this, the disciple smiled happily and said excitedly, "I know you guys. You're the disciples of Venerable CK and Venerable Mu Xin. I'm Zheng Hai, a disciple of Venerable Lijian. Mujio, do you want to add anything to the soup?" "I don't have any ingredients to add soup to it," Lin Xingjin asked Fengjiu as he cut the snake meat into pieces and put them into the pot to cook. "I have some here. I'll add it," Fengjiu said and walked over to help. As the sky gradually darkened, the temperature in the dense forest quickly dropped. Everyone sat around the bonfire, eating barbecued meat and drinking snake soup. They chatted as they ate, enjoying a different kind of atmosphere. However, looking at the unconscious Su Kaiji, they were still a little worried. They asked, "Mujio, when will Kaiji wake up? Is it still suitable for him to train in here?" Fengjiu swallowed the meat in his mouth and said, "He'll wake up tomorrow. Don't worry, his poison has been cured and he'll be fine." Hearing him say this again and again, everyone nodded their heads. It was good that he was fine. If something happened to him and he couldn't train anymore, it would be too cruel for him. They had prepared for a long time for this training. It was an annual training, but some people might not be selected. After all, there were only 100 spots. Fengjiu stood up after eating and said, "I'm going to wash my face and change my clothes. I'll be back in a while." As she said this, she walked toward a water source not far away. As soon as she left, Guaziki stood up and followed her. "Wait for me. I want to go too." Hearing this, Fengjiu was stunned. She looked back at him and said with a strange expression, "Then you come too." She stopped and waited for him. When he was beside her, they walked towards the water source together. The water source in the dense forest was hidden in the weeds. The two of them parted the weeds and saw the water source. It flowed from top to bottom. The water source wasn't very big, but the water was very clear. There were some rocks on the side, and a few leaves on the water's surface drifted with the water. Fengjiu squatted down to wash her face and stood up. Seeing Guaziki about to take off his clothes, she shouted, "Wait, what's wrong?" Guaziki looked at her. "You're going to bathe here?" "Yes." Guaziki nodded. Looking at the stream, he said, "This stream isn't small. Taking a bath shouldn't be a problem." "Then you bathe first?" "I'll wait until you're done," she said. Hearing this, Guaziki looked at him strangely. "Let's shower together. We're all men. What's there to be afraid of?" Fengjiu's mouth twitched. She smiled. "I'm not used to it." Seeing that he really didn't intend to take off his clothes, Guaziki thought for a moment and said, "Then how about this? You bathe first. I'll keep a lookout for you in case any small beasts come." "Okay." Fengjiu didn't refuse and agreed immediately. She let him walk 10 meters away and then set up an array around them. Only then did she take off her clothes and take a quick bath to wash away the smell of blood on her body and her fatigue. Chapter 3095. Mujio. He called out twice, but there was still no response. He did not hear the sound of Mujio bathing either. He walked towards the stream worriedly, but after taking a few steps, he was stunned. Array formation? He was stunned and stood there in a daze. Mujio set up an array formation here. He found it strange and continued walking. He thought that it was just an array formation. Could it be that he cannot break it? However, he didn't expect that he would come out of the array after circling around it once. He didn't give up and continued to walk inside. He chose another path, but in the end, he still circled back to the starting point from the array. "That's strange," said Guaziki. He scratched his head and stared ahead. Now, he was certain that he could not enter the array formation. "Ziki, what are you doing here?" Lin Xingjin walked over and looked at him strangely as he stood there and muttered, "You came at the right time. Aren't you good at array formations? Come, try and see if you can walk over." Guaziki pulled him forward. Hearing that, Lin Qingjin was slightly stunned. Array formation? He looked ahead and was slightly surprised. Who set up the 9-palace maze here? Where's Mujio? It should be Mujio. He's bathing in the stream in front. It's fine for a man to bathe, but why would he set up an array formation to prevent people from passing? It's strange, Guaziki said. The more he could not see, the more curious he became. He said to Lin Qingjin, "Why don't you try? Can you see through it?" Lin Qingjin smiled and shook his head. "That's not good," he said. Since Mu Jio set up the 9-palace maze, he naturally does not want people to disturb him. Let's wait outside for him to come out. Since he had said so, Guaziki didn't say anything more. He just found a place to sit down and waited outside. Lin Qingjin looked at the array formation in front. His eyes flashed, and he smiled. He waited there with Guaziki. Inside, Feng Jiao took off the disguise on his face and carefully washed his face. Then, he changed into the clothes given by the sect. After looking him up and down, he removed the formation and walked out. Once the formation was removed, she had only taken a few steps when she saw Guaziki and Lin Qingjin sitting nearby, chatting. She walked over and said, "I'm done bathing. Are you two going to bathe as well? Why are you being so secretive about taking a bath? Mujio, you're so weird." Guaziki stared at him and said. Feng Jiao smiled. "It's just a habit. Go ahead. I'll go back first." With that, he walked away. Lin Qingjin smiled. After watching the figure leave, he walked towards the stream. After washing his face, he filled it with water and went back. The stream was flowing water. The source of the water flowed downwards. Even if someone had just taken a bath here, the water was still clean water flowing down from above. Hence, Guaziki suppressed the doubts in his heart and quickly took off his clothes and walked into the stream to take a bath. After Feng Jiao went back, he found a big tree and leaped onto it to rest. He did not care about the people below and fell into a deep sleep. Mu Ling arranged for people to take turns keeping watch. Hence, the night was peaceful. The next morning, when Su Kaiji woke up and groaned because of the pain from his wound, they all woke up. Chapter 3096. Su Kaiji opened his eyes and looked at her in confusion. "I'm not dead yet. Senior brother Su, it was Mu Jio who saved you. The poison in your body has been cured," Lin Yushir said. She smiled and helped him sit up. She handed him some water. "Drink some water first." Su Kaiji took the water and drank a few mouthfuls. He rolled up his pants and saw that it was bandaged. Other than feeling a little weak and tired, he didn't seem to feel any other discomfort. "Su Kaiji, it's good that you're awake." Pei Zishuan walked over and smiled. "You scared us to death. Fortunately, you're fine." "That's right, these are your things. Put them away and eat something later. We still need to continue walking." Pei Zishuan handed over his portion of the iron scarlet dragon skin and some other things to him, and told him to put them away. Su Kaiji took a look and couldn't help but be stunned. "You guys killed that iron scarlet dragon?" "We didn't kill it. It was Mujio," Pei Zishuan said, and told him what happened. Hearing his words, Su Kaiji was slightly shocked. He raised his head and looked at Mujio, who was still sleeping on the tree. He was shocked. He was actually that powerful? If he was so powerful, why did their master still want them to protect him? Feng Jiao turned around on the tree. He yawned and rubbed his eyes. Seeing that it was getting late, he stretched and lazily leaned against the tree. "Mujio, thank you for saving me." Su Kaiji thanked Feng Jiao, who was on the tree. Feng Jiao jumped down and said, "No need to thank me. It was just a small matter." "That's right. You need to change the bandage on your leg. Yushir, help him change it," Feng Jiao said to Lin Yushir, who was beside him. "Okay," Lin Yushir replied and untied the bandage. "Mujio, we ate some leftover roasted meat from last night. Here's a piece for you." Mu Ling handed over a piece of roasted meat. "No need, you guys eat. I'm not hungry." She shook her head. She was thinking in her heart, where was the 1,000-year black spirit tendon? If they were to search in such a large forest, the chances were too slim. As she thought this, she looked at the crowd and asked, "Have you guys heard of the 1,000-year black spirit tendon?" Hearing this, everyone was slightly surprised, especially Mu Ling, Pei Zishuan, and Lin Qingjin. They looked at each other before looking at him. You want to find the 1,000-year black spirit tendon? So, this was a reason why he came in? Yes, Fengjiu nodded and asked, have you heard of which forest it is in? You've asked the right person. Lin Changjin revealed a smile. When I came in last year, I just happened to see the 1,000-year-old black spirit tendons. However, there were powerful, vicious beasts guarding it, so no one dared to approach. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes lit up. Which forest? That's in the depths. It's still quite far from here. Lin Qingjin said with a smile, but since you want to go, we can go with you. But didn't they say that there were powerful, vicious beasts there? What do we do if we go? The disciples, surnamed Chun, were somewhat hesitant, unwilling to take this risk. If you know the place, you could draw the route on the map for me. I can go myself. Fengjiu smiled and looked at Lin Qingjin. Chapter 3097. We are also heading towards the deeper regions. Since that's the case, let's go there. Mu Ling said and looked at the others. What do you all think? Everyone looked at each other and nodded. All right, we agree. Today, Pei Zixuan will be the leader. You will arrange everything today. Mu Ling looked at Pei Zixuan and said. Seeing this, Pei Zixuan looked at Su Kaiji and asked, can you walk? Yes. Su Kaiji replied and helped him up. It's nothing, just a little pain. Then let's set off. Don't stay here for too long. Hence, the group left and walked forward. They protected the injured person in the middle, and there were people guarding in front and behind. Along the way, they didn't encounter any more danger. Until they left the Iron Sheet Red Dragon's territory, they gradually saw the appearance of ferocious beasts. Along the way, Pei Zixuan led the group to kill ferocious beasts and collect beast crystals as well as some useful items. After a day, they didn't meet anyone from the other immortal sects. Along the way, they killed ferocious beasts and their robes were more or less stained with blood. They were no longer as clean and white as before. On the other hand, Fengjiu didn't fight much along the way. Instead, he picked some spiritual herbs. Although they weren't very precious, they were usually useful. After Pei Zixuan and the group killed a ferocious beast that attacked them, he looked around and saw Mu Jiu squatting not far away and picking spiritual herbs. He couldn't help but walk over and ask, Mu Jiu, these are all common spiritual herbs. Why are you picking them too? Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at him and smiled. Although they are common, they are often used. Look, this herb is a spiritual herb that stops bleeding and is also very effective for recovering from sword wounds. I collected it and have time to concoct some. It's a bottle of miraculous elixir. With that, she smiled and said to Pei Zixuan, moreover, the effect of the elixir is incomparable to other elixirs. Aren't you interested in the ferocious beasts? He saw that he had only been picking herbs along the way and rarely did anything else. They wanted to share some of the game with him, but he said he didn't want it. We both took what we needed. Plus, I didn't do anything. She softly smiled and placed the spiritual medicine back into her space. I found a fruit tree in front of us. Let's take a look and pick a lot of fruits. Zheng Hai raised his voice and handed the fruits to everyone. I've just tasted them. They taste pretty good. Everyone accepted the food with a smile. After wiping it on their robes, they began to eat. Fengjiu also took two to eat. Seeing that everyone was sitting around and resting, he walked over. I also found a hot spring in front. It's quite big. Let's go soak in it later, Zheng Hai said as he took a bite of the fruit. Hot spring? Then let's go take a bath first and change our clothes. My body is stained with the smell of ferocious beast blood. It smells fishy all the way, Lin Yushi said as she lowered her head and pulled at her blood-stained clothes. She frowned slightly. Then you go with Gretchen. I'll stand guard for you, Lin Qingjin said, looking at the two of them. Thank you, brother. Lin Yushi thanked him happily. Chapter 3098. At the hot spring, light smoke curled up. It was rare for the two women to have a warm bath here, so their faces were overflowing with happy smiles. They quickly took off their clothes and soaked in the hot spring. Because Lin Qingjin was guarding them, They could take a bath without worry. The sound of laughter spread out, and it was very pleasant in the forest. Hearing the laughter behind him, Lin Qingjin couldn't help but shake his head. He closed his eyes and sat cross-legged, but he released his divine sense to guard the hot spring. Perhaps it was because the laughter spread out, but not far away, a group of people heard the laughter of a woman. Their eyes flashed. Listen, it sounds like a woman's voice. There's also the sound of water. Another person said, his eyes lighting up. It sounds like a woman is bathing. As soon as these words were spoken, a different kind of light flashed across the eyes of a dozen or so men. There was some eagerness in their eyes. How about we go take a look? Let's see which immortal sect disciple is actually bathing here. The dozen or so people were all men. When they heard this, some of them couldn't put down their faces and said, "That's not good. What are you afraid of? Let's secretly take a look and see who it is." A lecherous man said. Without waiting for the others to agree, he took the lead and headed towards the direction of the voice. When the others saw this, although they were a bit tempted, they still had a sense of propriety. They didn't want to do anything that would lower their status, so they sat down and rested. Lin Qingjin, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, suddenly frowned. He opened his eyes and shouted, "Who is it?" With a shout, Gretchen and Lin Yusher, who were still in a hot spring, were startled and quickly put on their clothes. When Pei Zishuan heard Lin Qingjin's shout, he immediately stood up and walked towards the direction of the voice. The man who was pushing through the weeds to see what was going on didn't even see the two people in the water when a figure flashed in front of him, and he was kicked flying. That person let out a muffled groan. Just as he was about to get up from the ground, he was stepped back by Lin Qingjin. Before he could react, a fist smashed towards his eyes. Shameless. With a deep curse, a fist landed, accompanied by a miserable scream. At this moment, a dozen or so cultivators surrounded him. "Let him go." "Who is it?" Mu Ling and company also surrounded him. For a moment, the two groups of people faced each other, and the atmosphere was tense. On the other side, Lin Yusher and Gretchen quickly put on their clothes. Their wet hair dripped down their backs, and they had embarrassed expressions. Feng Jiu glanced at the two of them and said, "Dry your hair first." The two of them nodded and then went to the side to dry the water stains on their hair with their spiritual aura. This person peeked at the two of them bathing. Lin Qingjin stared at the man with a cold expression. Chapter 3099. The man knew that he was in the wrong, and his face turned red, but he didn't say anything. When the others saw this, they also knew that the man was in the wrong and immediately said, "He was just confused for a moment. Brother, please be magnanimous. Moreover, this brother has already taught him a lesson. I think we should just let it go." Seeing that the person who spoke was an older man and his words were reasonable, Lin Qingjin paused for a moment before releasing his foot from the man's chest. He stepped back and said, "I'll let you go this time. If it's the next time, I'll cripple you." Lin Qingjin glanced coldly between the man's legs. That glance inexplicably made the man shudder. The dozen people on the other side quietly sized up Lin Qingjin and the others. Finally, they said, "So you're disciples of Cerulean Planet. Nice to meet you." Seeing that they had cold faces and had no intention of talking to them, the man smiled and said, "We're also resting here. When we came over earlier, we just happened to catch a delicious, fierce beast. Since you're all disciples of the immortal sect, why don't you eat barbecue with us? Take it as an apology from us." "No need," Pei Zishuan said. After glancing at them, he waved his hand and signaled for everyone to go back. Seeing this, the disciples watched them leave and didn't stop them. When they returned to the tree where everyone had gathered, Lin Yusher and Gretchen said apologetically, "It's all our fault. We were too careless. If they hadn't thought that there was no one else here and played to their heart's content, they wouldn't have attracted those people. It's not your fault. Sit down," Pei Zishuan said and gestured for the two to sit. "Those people are disciples of the Qingsheng immortal sect," Mu Ling said and looked at everyone. "They're not weak, and they're resting not far from us. We should be more vigilant. Moreover, The Qingsheng immortal sect has many alchemists and pharmacists. They're better at using medicine. It's best if we stay away from them. Okay, everyone responded. As the sky was getting dark, they prepared to rest here. Feng Jiao and the others were sitting cross-legged around the bonfire. There were a few people guarding the surroundings. Not far away, those people were also sitting around the bonfire. They were roasting their prey, and the aroma was spreading out. You're just going to watch me get bullied? Or are you just going to watch and not help? The man who had been kicked and punched by Lin Qingjin earlier looked at them angrily. Don't forget that we are from the immortal sect. If they hit me, it's the same as hitting your face. Don't tell me you don't know that. Hearing this, one of the men laughed softly. Then you can only blame yourself for not being capable enough. You went to peek at a woman bathing, but you didn't see anything and got caught. However, you did let us see the strength and numbers of those people. I estimate that they should be weaker than us. Then should we wipe them all out? They might have a lot of good stuff on them. The people of Cerulean Planet are good at fighting. Our Qingsheng Immortal School has a lot of pills. If we fight them, we may not be able to beat them. However, if we use pills, they may not be our opponents. The man revealed a meaningful smile and looked at the crowd. Hearing this, the others' eyes flashed. They must have a lot of good stuff on them. Chapter 3100. All right, don't keep thinking about those two female disciples. The older man frowned and shouted, Don't forget that this is a training ground, not a place for romance. That disciple couldn't help but smile embarrassedly and didn't dare to say anything else. Listen, let's do this. They gathered together to discuss how to deal with Mu Ling and the rest. At this moment, Mu Ling and the rest were resting and didn't know that they were plotting against them. After midnight, it was the time when sleep was at its deepest. However, at this moment, in the night wind, a faint scent drifted over. When that faint scent drifted over to them, Feng Jiao opened her eyes. She, who was familiar with elixirs and all kinds of medicine, could smell it with one sniff. She was originally leaning against a tree to rest, and the people beside her were Mu Ling and Pei Zishuan. She gently knocked twice, and the two of them woke up immediately. Before they could speak, Feng Jiao lowered her voice and said, Don't move, someone is watching. Hearing this, the two of them knew that it was the people from the Qingsheng immortal sect. Just as they were asking, Mu Jiao handed over an item and said, Put this under your tongue. Thus, they took the item and put it under their tongues. Then, they quietly woke the others up and distributed the items to the others so that they could hold them under their tongues. They felt a spicy sensation from the tip of their tongues to their noses and directly to their brains, causing their drowsy minds to suddenly wake up. After a few minutes, rustling sounds came from not far away, as well as the voices of those people talking. The medicine should have taken effect. Come out. Hurry up and take everything from them. The older man said as he led the other disciples out. However, when all of them walked forward without any warning, Mu Ling and Pei Zishuan, who were originally motionless with their eyes closed, suddenly leaped up and grabbed the man in the lead with one move. Hiss! Caught off guard, his hands were twisted behind his back. He stared at them in shock and exclaimed, How are you all fine? The others also quickly jumped up and surrounded them. Oomph! It's good that we didn't attack you, but you actually dared to plot against us. Attack! Let them have a taste of our power. For a moment, both sides were embroiled in a chaotic battle. The leader of the group was knocked unconscious by Mu Ling and joined the others in the battle. The fighting power of the people on their side was not low to begin with. In addition, the people of Qingsheng were not prepared. They were caught off guard and lost their composure. Just as the outcome of the battle was about to be decided, the people from the Qingsheng Immortal School threw something on the ground. There was a loud bang and a light smoke spread out. Those people took the opportunity to escape. Mu Ling and the rest coughed incessantly from the thick smoke. They waved their hands to disperse the smoke as they retreated. By the time the smoke dissipated, those people had already fled without a trace. Only the man they had knocked out was left. Ran away? You actually left him behind. Guaziki sneered and glanced at the abandoned man. He felt that he was a little pitiful. At the critical moment, his companions, his senior and junior brothers, his team members had abandoned him just like that. Chapter 3101. Keep the items and send him out of the mystic realm, Pei Zishuan said. Thus, they took the items from the unconscious man and distributed them. Then, they crushed his teleportation jade token and sent him out of the mystic realm. Luckily, Mujio knows medicine. Otherwise, we would have fallen into their trap this time. A few disciples with the surname Chun said, and looked at Mujio. If it wasn't for him, they would have died long ago. The few of them were in charge of keeping watch, but they weren't too far away from them. They just sat down against a tree not far from them. If it wasn't for Mujio's reminder and the medicine under their tongues, they would have been the ones robbed and sent out of the mystic realm. Master told us to protect you, but we didn't expect you to be the one protecting us the whole way, Mu Ling said with a smile and looked at the sleepy youth who was yawning. We're all helping each other, Feng Jiu said with a tired face. It's still early until daybreak. I'll sleep for a while more. She walked to a big tree beside the fire and sat down. She leaned against it and closed her eyes to rest. Seeing this, everyone smiled and knew that those people wouldn't dare to come again. They left 2 people to take turns keeping watch while the rest continued to rest. The panting and shocked disciples ran to a secluded place and stopped. They said in exasperation, "How can they be fine? The medicine was clearly enough to knock them out, but it was all faked?" Someone sat on the ground and asked, "What do you think will happen to Senior Brotherly if he falls into their hands?" "What else can happen? He'll definitely be robbed of everything on him. They'll probably crush his teleportation jade token," a man said. As his voice fell, his expression changed slightly. "I think there must be someone among the cerulean planet disciples who is skilled in medicine. Otherwise, they wouldn't have known that we tampered with it. Although most of us in Qingcheng are skilled in medicine, we're not weak either. But compared to them, we're still hard to beat. Are all the cerulean planet disciples so powerful?" One of the disciples hesitated and said, "I think I recognize 2 of them." Hearing this, the others immediately looked at him. "Which 2 people?" "The 2 in the lead, the first 2 who jumped up. One of them is called Mu Ling, and the other is called Pei Zishuan. Both of them are sons of aristocratic families. It's said that they're the next heirs of their families. Their statuses are extraordinary. Moreover, their masters are Mu Xin and Si Quebec. Among the venerables of the cerulean planet immortal sect, they're the strongest." The disciple paused for a moment before he continued. "Some time ago, during the competition between the 4 major immortal sects, Venerable CK and Venerable Mu Xin lost to Feng Jiu. They even became his disciples. You should remember." Hearing him mention this matter, everyone suddenly understood. Of course they remembered. At that time, Feng Jiu and Xianyuan Mose came down from the immortal ascension stairs in front of the disciples of the 4 major immortal sects. As soon as they came down, they disrupted the competition of the 4 major immortal sects. In the end, the 2 strongest venerables of the cerulean planet immortal sect became their disciples. Everyone in the 4 major immortal sects knew about this. They were also present at the scene. How could they not remember this? The strength of their disciples is naturally extraordinary. We were lucky to be able to escape from their clutches, the disciple said. Chapter 3102. Hearing this, although everyone did not say anything, they felt that it was true. They had used a secret move. If they were seen again, they would definitely not let them off. Thinking of this, they could not help but look around. This place was pitch black, and those people did not chase after them. Only then did they relax. Let's rest. Tomorrow, we'll leave this place and try not to meet them. Thus, everyone rested on the spot, planning to leave this place as soon as the sun rose to avoid meeting them. A few days later, at noon, Feng Jiu and the others were dealing with the ferocious beast that they had just killed. After a few days of interaction, they already had a tacit understanding. Anything that had medicinal value from the ferocious beast would belong to her, and those that were valuable or had other uses would be distributed by the others. Over the past few days, As they gradually entered the depths of the dense forest, the levels of the ferocious beasts they encountered became higher and higher, and their combat strength gradually increased. Even this time, they had killed more than a dozen ferocious beasts, and a few of them had suffered varying degrees of injuries. After Feng Jiu collected the medicinal items, he looked at the few people who were resting at the side and asked, "How are your injuries?" "It's not a problem. It's already bandaged," Su Kaiji said. Because he had been poisoned a few days ago, his body was gradually recovering, and his strength could not keep up, so he was injured. However, it was only a small injury, and he would be fine after applying some medicine. "The smell of blood here is stronger. If you want to rest, we have to change places," she said. Because she happened to be the leader today, she had the responsibility to take care of the entire team. As for taking turns to be the leader, it was a good way to let everyone learn the ability and responsibility of leading a team. Besides that, it was also a test of personal ability. "All right, then let's pack up these things and go to the front to rest," Lin Chengjin said as he hurried to deal with the remaining matters. At this moment, Feng Jiu seemed to have sensed something. He turned around and looked in a certain direction, saying, "Someone's coming." In the past few days, other than a group of disciples from the same immortal sect, they had only encountered some ferocious beasts. They had not met anyone from the other immortal sects, and, at this moment, the group that was coming over seemed to be the disciples of the other immortal sects. "Oh, it's actually the disciples of the Blue Star Immortal Sect." There were quite a number of people in the group. As they approached, they sized them up. Their gazes swept past their prey and landed on them. "Are you going to hand it over yourselves? Or do we have to do it ourselves? Tell us. If we attack, you won't be able to keep your things, and you'll have to leave the mystic realm." As the man in the lead spoke, his eyes flashed. When they fell on Feng Jiu, his eyes lit up. He strode forward and came to Feng Jiu's side. "There's actually such a young disciple. She looks very delicate and pretty." As he spoke, he stared at Feng Jiu with a strange light in his eyes. He even reached out to touch Feng Jiu's face. "What are you doing?" Mu Ling and the others shouted in unison, and a sharp aura shot out. "Ha ha ha, didn't you see? Our eldest senior brother has always had a soft spot for handsome youths. Although your looks are not bad, it's just that you're a little too old." Those people laughed heartily. When Mu Ling and the others shouted, they rushed forward in a flash and stopped them. Chapter 3103. Her lips curled into a faint smile. No one saw how she attacked, but they heard a blood-curdling scream. The man standing in front of her bent his knees and fell to his knees. She twisted one of his arms behind his back, and the crisp sound of his bones breaking traveled into everyone's ears. The blood-curdling scream woke everyone up. They looked at the man whose arms had been twisted by the youth and cried out in alarm, "Eldest senior brother!" Just as they were about to step forward, they heard the youth's voice. "Don't move. Otherwise, I don't know if I'll break his neck." She clasped one of her hands around the man's neck, causing him to involuntarily shudder. Don't come over!" He cried out in alarm and looked at Feng Jiu in shock. The disciples of the four major immortal sects are not allowed to kill each other. Don't do anything rash." Feng Jiu smiled. "I'm not doing anything rash. I'm just protecting myself. Furthermore, I didn't attack first. If anything happens to you, it'll be purely an accident." Mu Ling and the others took advantage of the fact that the others were still in a daze and quickly came to Feng Jiu's side. They looked at the 20 disciples and said in a low voice, "If you don't want anything to happen to him, leave immediately." Some of the people looked at Mu Ling and the others, then looked at the man whose arm had been twisted. Their eyes flashed, and someone stepped forward fiercely. "They're just a dozen people, yet they dare to hurt eldest senior brother. How can we let them off? We have to avenge eldest senior brother." When he heard this, the man who had been pressed to the ground by Feng Jiu changed his expression. If they rush forward, then don't do anything rash. Listen to them first," he said hurriedly. However, when he saw that the disciples were about to attack, his heart sank. Were they giving up on him? Were they trying to take the opportunity to kill him? Fengjiu looked at this scene and chuckled. Looks like you're not very popular. As she spoke, she took everything off the man's body. At the same time, she crushed his jade tablet. I'll spare your life for now. As soon as she finished speaking, the jade tablet shattered and the man was teleported out. When the disciples saw this, their expressions changed. It would be fine if he died here, but if he made it out alive, then take care of them. One of the men shouted fiercely. He raised his chi and rushed forward with his sword, attacking Fengjiu. Mu Ling and Pei Zixuan stood in front of Fengjiu, facing the people who were attacking them. They had fewer people on their side, but their strength was not weak. Both sides exchanged blows. Both looked like they were going all out. When Mu Ling and Pei Zixuan saw that many of their people were injured and their battle prowess had decreased, they couldn't help but feel anxious. However, at this moment, the roar of a ferocious beast could be heard. Roar, roar. A powerful pressure accompanied the howl and filled the air. Feeling the vibrations in the air, Fengjiu frowned slightly. This pressure, it was most likely not from an ordinary beast. At that moment, she decisively shouted, Mu Ling Kaiji, take your men and retreat from the southeast. Cheng Jin and Zi Xian, stay behind and cover for me. Hearing this, everyone followed her orders instinctively. Mu Ling and Yun Kaiji took their men and retreated. Fengjiu, Lin Qingjin, and Pei Zixuan were in charge of covering the rear. Chapter 3104. Whoosh! The roaring flames instantly attacked those people. When a wall of fire was built in front of the three of them, it also bought them time to retreat. At the same time, the sharp sword in Fengjiu's hand flashed, and a sharp sword chi shot out, blocking the cultivators who were chasing after Mu Ling and the others. The distance between the two sides was widened. The moment the sword aura and flames shot out, the disciples exclaimed in shock and instinctively retreated to avoid the sword aura and flames. They watched as those people retreated tens of meters away from them, widening the distance between them and the rest. Just as they were about to give chase, the roar of a ferocious beast suddenly sounded. Roar! Roar! The powerful roar was accompanied by a terrifying aura, causing them to have a splitting headache. They hugged their heads and cried out in pain, "Oh no! There are high-level, ferocious beasts. There's a retreat. Follow them and retreat to the southeast." Someone shouted. He wanted to retreat in the direction that Mu Ling and the others had retreated in to fight for a chance of survival. However, in the blink of an eye, two ferocious leopards exuding a powerful aura appeared and blocked their path. Hiss! Godly beasts! Seeing the level of the two leopards, they couldn't help but gasp, and their faces turned pale. Two godly beasts, and two leopards with abilities higher than level 5. Even if there were more than 20 of them, they wouldn't be a match for them. However, if they were to crush the Jade Pendant and leave the mystic realm, they wouldn't be satisfied. Immediately, they gritted their teeth and shouted, "Let's join forces. If we win, we might even be able to tame the two godly beasts and help us greatly." Hearing this, everyone's hearts stirred. They couldn't help but admit that the temptation of two god beasts was too great. If they could subdue them and form a contract with them, their strength would greatly increase. Moreover, if they could obtain a god beast as a contract beast, the immortal sect would raise them and their family would rise to another level. This temptation was far too great, enough to move their hearts. Foolish humans, do you think you can tame us? What a fool's dream. One of the leopards stared at them with bloodthirsty eyes. It stuck out its tongue and licked the corner of its mouth. Then, it opened its mouth and revealed its sharp teeth. Looks like I'll be able to eat my fill today. As soon as the leopard's voice fell, it let out a low roar and pounced forward at a speed too fast to be heard. One of the disciples who couldn't dodge in time fell to the ground. The leopard opened its mouth and bit the neck of the disciple who cried out in alarm. Save! Crack! Before he could call for help, he heard the sound of bones breaking. The disciple's body stiffened. His body twitched a few times before he stopped moving. Even in death, his eyes were still looking in front of him in horror. The leopard raised its head and revealed its sharp teeth that were stained with blood. It let out a low roar at the pale-faced disciples. The disciples came back to their senses and turned to run. However, the leopard was faster than them. It pounced forward and knocked down another disciple. Before the other disciple could attack, its sharp claws pierced into the disciple's heart. With a swipe of its claws, the leopard dug out the disciple's inner core and swallowed it. Chapter 3105. Run, run. Their mental endurance had reached its peak, causing their bodies to tremble and unable to fight. Some people crushed their teleportation jade tablets as they ran in order to exchange for a chance of survival. Some people were too slow and couldn't react in time. They were pounced on by the two ferocious leopards and had their necks bitten off. The smell of blood filled the air, making the already bloody place even redder. The few corpses on the ground were covered in blood. Every one of them died with their eyes wide open in fear. Their faces were filled with horror. Other than a few people who couldn't escape in time, the others used their teleportation jade tablets to escape. The two ferocious leopards glanced at the corpses on the ground, then looked around. The humans who escaped earlier seemed to be smarter. They escaped in the opposite direction before the leopards even got close. Now, they couldn't even see their shadows. What a pity. Then, the two ferocious leopards ate the corpses on the ground clean. Finally, they squatted on the ground, wiped the corners of their mouths with their claws, swung their tails, and lay down to rest. Fengjiu and the others quickly escaped from that area. Gretchen and Lin Yushi were panting as they ran. They looked at Fengjiu and asked, It seems like they aren't chasing us. Can we stop?" After fighting, running, and getting injured, their stamina wasn't as good as a man's. They couldn't keep up. Fengjiu looked back and said, "Let's stop and rest for a while." "Mujio, what kind of beast was that? We only heard the sound. We didn't even see it." Guaziki asked as he wiped his sweat. "But from the sound of it, it seems to be a very powerful beast. The pressure in its voice is extraordinary," Zheng Hai said, gasping for breath. Fengjiu thought for a while and said, "It's a divine beast that isn't inferior to the iron-hide scarlet dragon. And there are two of them. If those people go up against those two divine beasts, they'll probably lose a layer of skin even if they don't die." Actually, she felt that it would be difficult for them to not die. Unless they crushed their jade tablets and escaped before the two divine beasts came out, they might have a chance to live. However, this was a once-a-year experience in the mystic realm. They probably wouldn't give up this opportunity unless they had no other choice. Hearing this, everyone's faces froze. There was a trace of fear in their hearts. Two divine beasts that weren't inferior to the iron-hide scarlet dragon? If they went up against them, it would be really dangerous. They might even die here. Fengjiu took out some wine from her space and took a sip. She thought to herself, "Why are there so many mythological beasts here? Logically speaking, even if it was a mystic realm, this kind of mythical beast should be in the deepest part of the mystic realm." However, even though they were in the deepest part of the mystic realm, they were still very far from the deepest part. However, including the iron-hide scarlet dragon from before and the two mythical beasts today, they had already met three mythical beasts. This situation did not seem right. "Did your master mention anything special about this place to you?" Fengjiu asked. Hearing this, everyone's eyes flashed. Chapter 3106. The ferocious beasts they encountered along the way were considered to be above average. Next were the divine beasts. In just a few days, they actually encountered three divine beasts in a row. There was indeed something wrong. Normally speaking, those divine beasts should stay in the depths. It was impossible for them to appear here. Then what was the reason? The situation seems to be a bit wrong. I haven't heard of encountering divine beasts here in the past. Lin Xingjin said and looked at them. Did something happen in this secret realm? Otherwise, why would all the divine beasts come out? Hearing this, Su Kaiji asked, "If that's the case, doesn't that mean that in addition to the divine beasts we encountered before, we might encounter other divine beasts? If that was the case, then it would be really troublesome. It's a pity that we can't contact people outside the secret realm. Otherwise, we could ask what happened inside. Gwaziki sighed softly. He couldn't help but worry about these 3 months of experience. Since we don't know what happened, we can only be careful. Fengjiu looked at them and said, "Take the time to rest and adjust your breath. Get ready to go." "Okay." Everyone responded and sat down cross-legged to rest. On the other side, outside the teleportation array, seeing another unconscious disciple being teleported out, the 2 venerables guarding outside the array slightly froze. In the past few days, many disciples have been crushed by the teleportation jade token and sent out of the secret realm. Those disciples who were sent out had varying degrees of injuries on their bodies. Moreover, their interspatial rings and chinquin bags were missing. This disciple is at the peak of the nascent soul realm. His strength is not weak. How could he be injured like this? A mentor said as he surrounded the disciple who had fallen at the teleportation array. Another venerable from the immortal sect walked over and said with a smile, "His skills must be inferior. Otherwise, why would he be seriously injured and sent out after stealing his things and ruining his opportunity to experience this time?" As soon as his voice fell, the 2 venerables at the teleportation array in front of them turned around and looked at him strangely. He said with a displeased expression, "Why are you looking at me? Am I wrong?" "No, this disciple is from your immortal sect. Do you want to come and see which supremacy of your sect is his disciple?" A supremacy of the Blue Star immortal sect smiled and asked the supremacy to come forward. The Exalt Realm expert was stunned when he heard this, and then he strode forward. However, his expression couldn't help but change when he saw the person lying on the ground. How could this be? He quickly stepped forward and helped the disciple up. After examining the disciple, his face darkened as he pressed his finger on the disciple's Renjong point. The disciple groaned in pain and slowly opened his eyes. "Master, Master?" The eyebrows of the 2 venerables twitched. So this unlucky disciple was his disciple. No wonder his face was so dark. "What's wrong with you? How did it end up like this? Who did it?" The venerable asked with a dark expression. "It's the people from the Blue Star immortal sect. They tricked their disciples." The man gritted his teeth and glared at the Blue Star immortal sect's venerable. Chapter 31:07. When the venerable master heard this, he remained silent. He helped the disciple up. Just as he was about to speak, he saw a flash of light in the teleportation array. One by one, the disciples appeared in the teleportation array. "It's you guys." When the disciple with the broken arm saw them, his eyes darkened. "Eldest senior brother? Master." When the disciples saw them, they gradually regained their senses and suppressed the fear in their hearts. Too terrifying, too terrifying. They died just like that, and died so miserably. What happened? Why did you come out? There were divine beasts inside. Very high-level divine beasts. We escaped. A disciple said with a trembling voice. When he thought of the scene inside, his eyes were still filled with fear. "Divine beasts? Did you enter the depths?" The venerable masters were startled and asked. "No, we didn't enter the depths." But 2 divine beasts appeared out of nowhere. They were extremely fast. They pounced and bit several senior brothers to death. The disciple's heart was still beating rapidly. He felt a lingering fear. If they couldn't escape, they would have died in there. When he thought of being eaten by the 2 divine beasts, he couldn't help but tremble. Divine beasts usually don't appear easily. How did you encounter them inside? What exactly is going on? Tell us in detail. The venerable masters said in a low voice. They felt that the situation was a little strange. At this moment, 2 venerable masters walked over and said, "You guys can stay here. Something seems to have happened in the secret realm. The sect masters want you guys to go back immediately." "What happened?" the venerable masters asked at the same time. "The East, West, South, and North teleportation arrays have sent disciples out one after another. They all said that they were attacked by divine beasts. Now, the disciples of the four sects have died in there. The situation is a little serious. Hearing this, their faces changed. They immediately followed the two venerable masters and left. In a place not far from the teleportation array, the sect masters of the four immortal sect had rushed over after receiving the news. The four of them stood not far from the teleportation array, surrounded by some supremacies of their immortal sections. After everyone had arrived, one of the sect masters waved his hand and set up a soundproof barrier. He then said to them, "The restrictions in the secret territory have loosened, especially the restriction in the depths of the secret territory. The restriction next to it has been broken. The divine beasts that used to live in the depths of the secret territory have all rushed out and scattered to various parts of the secret territory, even the periphery." The sect master's voice paused for a moment as he looked at the crowd and said, "Based on the information of some of the disciples who managed to escape, we know that many disciples of the four sects have been killed. There is still more than 2 months before the 3-month deadline. I'm worried that the disciples inside won't be able to withstand the attacks of the mythological beasts. When the 3-month deadline is up, only a few of them will be able to come out alive." Everyone went silent for a moment when they heard this. Those people that were going in to temper themselves were the seed disciples of their respective sects, and they were the disciples that the various clans thought highly of. If a mishap were to really occur in there, then this matter wouldn't be a small matter. Finally, the other sect leaders looked at each other and asked, "What do you think? What should we do? The 3-month deadline isn't up yet. If they didn't crush the jade tablet to teleport themselves out, we wouldn't be able to get them out." Chapter 3108. There's a problem in the mystic realm. The disciples inside probably haven't noticed the loosening of the restrictions. Even if they do, they won't be willing to crush the teleportation jade tablet before they encounter any fatal danger. We can't contact them from the outside either. The only way is for the supremacies to go in and inform the disciples of the four sects so that they can come out as soon as possible. Hearing this, everyone was startled and asked, "But this mystic realm can only allow nascent soul cultivators to enter at most. Those above the nascent soul stage will definitely be suppressed, and it'll be difficult for them to move around inside." No, have you forgotten? It's because of the loosening of the restrictions in the mystic realm that caused all these problems. The sect leader of the Blue Star Immortal sect looked at everyone and said, "The loosening of the restrictions means that the supremacies have a chance to enter. Because of the loosening of the restrictions, your strength won't be suppressed after entering. That's why I said that this is the only way. But the restrictions haven't completely loosened yet. We can't enter either," one of the supremacies said. "That's why we have to work together to open the restrictions. Now that the restrictions have loosened, the ferocious beasts inside will definitely become restless. However, it's one thing if a powerful cultivator enters. But if they enter with the strength of a nascent soul cultivator and encounter a powerful ferocious beast, only death awaits them." Hearing this, everyone was silent for a moment and said, "All right, as long as the restrictions are opened, the supremacies of the four sects are willing to enter and bring the disciples out." Seeing this, the sect leaders of the four immortal sects looked at each other. They removed the soundproof barrier around them and walked towards the array at the same time in the mystic realm. Fengjiu, who was resting under a tree with her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes. A trace of surprise flashed across her clear eyes. She looked at the air in the mystic realm and felt that something seemed to be changing. The strength that was originally suppressed in her body was slightly surging. It was as if a person who had originally contracted their hands and feet was slowly extending their contracted hands and feet. The suppression was gradually disappearing. "What's wrong?" Mu Ling had been paying attention to Mu Jio. When he saw him suddenly open his eyes, he stared at him and asked. Fengjiu stopped thinking and looked at them and asked, "Do you feel anything different?" "What's different?" Everyone was stunned when they heard this. "The restrictions are disappearing," Fengjiu said. She stood up and felt that the restrictions were indeed disappearing. The restrictions that were originally suppressing her strength was disappearing, and her strength was gradually surging out of her body. It seems like something big. She spoke softly as she walked around the area. Her pace was neither fast nor slow, as if she was thinking about something. After a long while, she turned around and looked at them. I suggest that you all leave this place first and stop this training. Is it because there are divine beasts? Feng Nine glanced at them and said, because the danger inside has increased by more than one level. It's very difficult for a nascent soul realm cultivator to survive here. Especially since the restriction has disappeared, the powerful divine beasts will no longer be trapped in the depths. Instead, they will walk around in this secret realm to hunt for food. If you're not careful, you'll die without a complete corpse. Chapter 3109. The situation may not be as serious as you say. Furthermore, we are not the only ones here. There are other disciples as well. I think we should take a look first. Disciple Chen said, we are all immortal cultivators. We can't possibly retreat just because there is danger, right? Furthermore, we don't have to leave just yet. Guaziki said, unwilling to leave just like that. Hearing their words, Feng Jiu frowned slightly. Then, she looked at Mu Ling and Pei Zixuan and asked, what do you guys think? These two were her seniors, and their words carried some weight. She hoped that they could see the danger clearly and leave now. When the two heard this, they looked at each other and said, we also feel that we don't have to leave yet. Even if there is danger, it won't be too late to leave then. Seeing this, Feng Jiu did not say anything more and said, since you guys have said so, then do as you wish. Mu Jiu, don't worry. If there is really danger, we will crush the jade pendant and leave. Guaziki said, yes, we will be fine as long as we are careful. Zheng Hai said, then let's go. She looked at the crowd and packed up before continuing to walk forward. She said, let's take a detour to avoid meeting the two beasts. Don't make too much noise to avoid unnecessary trouble. The crowd agreed and went around the two beasts. Along the way, Feng Jiu asked Lin Xingjin if there were any special landmarks to remember where the 1,000-year-old black dragon tendons were. Along the way, they did not meet any fatal danger. At this moment, not far in front of them, dense trees blocked their view. However, they could hear faint cries for help. Help, help! Hearing the cries for help, Mu Ling and the rest stopped in their tracks. Someone is calling for help. With that, they quickly walked forward and pushed aside the trees to take a look. He saw a woman in green tied to a tree in front of him. Her clothes were slightly messy, and her hair hung loosely. Half of her face was covered, but he could still see that she was a woman with extraordinary looks. It's a disciple of the Qingsheng immortal sect. They went forward and untied the woman while asking, why are you tied up here? The woman's long hair hung down to her waist, and her green clothes were loose and messy. Her skin was like jade, and there were tears in her eyes. She had a panicked expression on her face, and she looked exactly like a delicate beauty, causing all the men present to feel pity for her. After the woman was untied, she still looked delicate. She lowered her eyes and sobbed, I don't know. I was tied up when I woke up. I don't even know where my senior martial brother went. I'm scared. I'm scared alone. As she spoke, she sobbed and threw herself into Mu Ling's arms. Her helpless expression made Mu Ling look awkwardly at the others. Everyone was looking at him as if they were watching a show, especially Mu Jiu, who had a half-smile on his face. Mu Ling couldn't help but cough lightly and push the girl away. Miss, please conduct yourself with dignity, he said in a clear voice. After pushing the woman away, he said, Miss, you can crush the jade pendant and leave the mystic realm first. Now that the mystic realm has changed, it's not very safe. Chapter 3110. Hearing this, Mu Ling frowned slightly. No teleportation jade token? That would be troublesome. He looked at Guan Yu and Lin Yushi and said to them, help her tidy up. All right. The two of them replied and brought the girl to the side. seeing them leave. He then looked at Mu Jio, Pei Zixuan, and Lin Qingjin and asked, "What do you think? How should we deal with this girl?" Pei Zixuan and Lin Qingjin looked at each other and said, "This woman is a little suspicious. She said that her senior brothers have all disappeared, but there are no signs of battle in the surroundings, nor is there any aura after the battle. There are also no corpses or anything like that. She is alone here. I feel that something is wrong." Feng Jiu looked at the two of them with admiration in his eyes. Hearing this, Mu Ling nodded. "Is indeed a little strange, but we can't just leave this girl like this, right?" As he spoke, he looked at the silent Mu Jio and asked, "Mu Jio, what do you think?" Feng Jiu smiled and said, "There is no aura of a human on this girl. Didn't you notice it?" She glanced at the girl who was tidying up her clothes and hair. She was a delicate girl and was very lovable. However, from the first glance, she could tell that she was not human. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. How is that possible? They instinctively looked at the woman. The woman seemed to have sensed their gazes and looked back at them, revealing a gentle and beautiful smile. "Mu Jio, could you have seen wrongly? That is clearly a girl," Disciple Chen said, and felt that it was not possible. "It can't be wrong," Feng Jiu said and looked at Mu Ling, Pei Zixuan, and Lin Qingjin. "Deal with it as you see fit. Deal with it. Deal with it. Kill her. That is clearly a girl." Disciple Chun frowned and looked at the indifferent Mu Jio. He said, "There are so many of us, but we can't tell that the girl is not human. How did you know? That girl does not pose any threat to us. If we kill her like this, it may not be too much. I don't agree with your method. It is too hasty." Feng Jiu smiled. "It's fine. You guys can make the decision." Since he didn't believe her, there was nothing she could do. She just hoped that he wouldn't come looking for her when something happened. Mu Ling, Pei Zixuan, and Lin Qingjin glanced at each other. The three of them were more opinionated than the rest. When they heard Mu Jio say that the woman wasn't human, their first reaction was to believe him. Because of what they had seen and guessed along the way, they felt that Mu Jio was not an ordinary disciple. Moreover, he had saved them many times along the way. It was impossible for him to harm them, and it was even more impossible for him to harm an unfamiliar girl. However, from their point of view, they were unable to detect that the woman did not have any human aura like Mu Jio. On the contrary, what they saw was a woman. This was undeniable. Before the other party posed a threat to them, they couldn't bring themselves to kill the woman. After some consideration, they said, "How about this? Since we've already saved her, let her leave on her own. Just don't let her follow us." Chapter 3111. "What do you think?" Feng Jiu looked at him and asked. The man with the surname Chen paused and said, "Why don't we bring her along first? Maybe we'll meet the disciples of the Qingcheng immortal sect and hand her over to them?" I think that's a good idea too." Zheng Hai agreed. The other disciples with the surname Chen also nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Feng Jiu chuckled. "Since you've said so, then we'll do as you say." On the other side, Gretchen and Lin Yushir helped to tidy up the girl's clothes and hair. Seeing that they were done talking, they brought her over. "Let's continue walking. Let's find a place to rest before it gets dark," Feng Jiu said as he looked at the crowd and walked forward. When the people behind him saw this, they also followed behind. Seeing Mu Jio walking in front, Guiziki leaned close to Mu Ling and asked softly, "Is Mu Jio angry?" "No, he's not that petty." Mu Ling shook his head and said. Lin Qingjin looked at Mu Jio in front of him and then glanced at the woman beside Gretchen Yu and his sister. He thought to himself, if this woman is really not human like Mu Jio said, then what is she? If she's not human, then she's definitely dangerous. It's too dangerous to let his sister and Junior follow her. Immediately, he called out, "Yushir, Junior's sister, the two of you come over." The two people who were talking to the girl were startled when they heard this. They said something to the girl and walked forward. "Brother, what's wrong?" Lin Yushir asked as she came to his side and held his hand. Gretchen also looked at him from the side, but did not speak. "The two of you, don't get too close to that girl." He lowered his voice and said to the two of them, "Why?" The two of them asked in confusion. Just listen to me and don't get too close. You have to be careful, he said in a low voice and glanced at the two of them. He did not look like he was joking at all. Seeing this, the two of them were startled. After looking at each other, they nodded. Okay, we understand. Although they did not know the reason, the two of them knew that he would not harm them. Therefore, for the rest of the journey, the two of them distanced themselves from the girl and distanced themselves from her. Along the way, Mu Ling, Pei Zixuan, and Lin Xingjin kept their eyes on the girl behind them. After seeing Yusher and Gretchen distancing themselves from her, not long after, she started chatting with the disciples of the Chun surnamed Chun and seemed to be very happy. Seeing this scene, their hearts trembled slightly. Mu Jiao reminded them to be careful of this woman, but from the looks of it, they did not seem to take Mu Jiao's words to heart. Feng Jiao glanced at it and shook her head. No, this cave should be the lair of a huge beast. If we rest here, we may become the meal of some beast. Chapter 31:12. The few of them glanced at Mu Jiao, then said to Guaziki, Today, our team leader is Mu Jiao. Let's do as he says. It was one thing to bring that girl along, but if they did not give him face again, they were worried that they would really anger him. Hearing that, Guaziki smiled embarrassedly. All right, we will listen to Mu Jiao. Saying so, he said, Mu Jiao, I don't have any other meaning, don't mind me. He did not mean to look down on him, only thinking that if they stayed in this cave, they would be able to sleep more comfortably at night. Along the way, Mu Jiao had saved them many times, and he saw it all. Naturally, he would not say that he was dissatisfied with him. Furthermore, he was someone that their master had instructed them to take good care of, even though it seemed that he had taken care of them more. Let's walk a little further in front to take a look, Pei Zixuan said, pointing to a place in front. That place has a mountain and can block the night wind at night. It's not bad as a resting spot. Thus, the group continued to walk forward and came to the place that Pei Zixuan had mentioned. Feng Jiu looked around and said to them, Then let's rest here. Mu Ling, come with me to take a look at the surrounding terrain. Zixuan, I will leave this place to you. All right, they responded. Mu Ling followed Feng Jiu to take a look at the surrounding terrain. Pei Zixuan assigned tasks to the group, letting them pick up some branches nearby to prepare for the fire at night. Mu Ling followed Mu Jiao, and after the two had walked for a distance, Mu Ling hesitated as if he had something to say, but he did not say it after moving his lips a few times. Feng Jiao naturally sensed it and said, You have something to ask me? Yes. Mu Ling responded, looking at him, and said, But I don't know how to start. Hearing this, Feng Jiao laughed lightly. Since you don't know, then don't speak. Mu Ling paused but still asked, You're not from the Mu family, right? No. As Feng Jiao spoke, he gave the answer very straightforwardly. This caused Mu Ling, who originally thought that he would not answer, to be stunned for a moment. Only then did he continue to ask, also not master's disciple. Feng Jiao glanced at him with a smile on his face and said in a light tone, No. You came here just for the 1,000-year black spirit tendons. He asked again. That's right. Feng Jiao nodded. You, who are you? He asked the last question and looked at him nervously. Master told me not to ask about you, but I'm still curious. I want to know who you are. Hearing this, Feng Jiao chuckled and said, I'm your ancestor. Hearing this, Mu Ling's face instantly darkened. He thought that Mu Jiao was joking with him, and had even made such a rude and impudent joke. Just as he was about to reprimand him, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. His heart jumped and his eyes widened in shock. You're not Mu Jiao, you are Feng Jiao. He sucked in a breath and exclaimed in shock, looking in disbelief at the person in front of him. Your reaction is quite fast. Chapter 31:13. Hearing this, Mu Ling's legs turned to jelly and he almost knelt down. Wasn't this his ancestor? Even their Mu family's ancestor had to be respectful to his master. When the immortal sect introduced him, he even called him senior brother. Thinking of this, his face turned pale and he knelt down. However, Before his knees touched the ground, someone grabbed him by the collar and pulled him up. "What are you doing?" Fengjiu glanced at him unhappily and said, "Other than my 2 disciples, no one knows my identity. Don't reveal my identity and bring me unnecessary trouble." Mu Ling suppressed the shock in his heart. He was so nervous that he could barely move his hands. He took a deep breath and looked at Fengjiu, who was standing at the side. He quickly said, "Don't worry, ancestor. I won't say anything. Just call me Mujio. Let's go." Just familiarize yourself with the surrounding terrain. Familiarizing himself with the terrain was just to know which direction to escape to if there was any danger. "Yes," Mu Ling respectfully responded and did not dare to be impudent in his words. Although he felt that he was unfathomable, he did not know that he was her. He also did not know that he was their master's master, their Mu family's ancestor. Now that he knew, his attitude would definitely be different. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He paused and asked, "Ancestor, the girl you mentioned, is she really not human?" Fengjiu turned back and glanced at him. "Do you think I'm joking?" Hearing this, Mu Ling's expression turned serious. "If that's the case, then we can't keep this girl. We have to go back and chase her away to prevent trouble." Fengjiu walked forward and said leisurely, "I told you long ago, but you didn't listen. If anything happens, it's your problem." As they walked back, the sky gradually darkened. When they returned to the resting place, Fengjiu glanced around and saw that the girl and the disciple surnamed Chun were not there. He frowned and asked, "Where's the girl?" She and junior brother Chun went to pick up branches nearby. As Pei Zixuan spoke, he looked around. "Strange, he's been gone for a while. Why hasn't he returned yet?" "Oh no," Mu Ling exclaimed in a low voice. "Quick, bring him back." Seeing his grave expression, the crowd did not ask any questions. Instead, they quickly searched the surroundings. "Senior brother Chun? Senior brother Chun?" The other 2 disciples, surnamed Chun, came back with a push of branches. Seeing that they were looking for someone, they asked, "What's wrong? Where's your clan brother?" Mu Ling asked, "Have you seen him? He went over there with the girl just now. We didn't notice." The 2 disciples said. Seeing the serious expressions on their faces, they asked, "Did something happen? Why do they all look like that? He might be in danger. We have to find him as soon as possible." As Mu Ling spoke, he led the crowd in the direction that the 2 disciples had pointed. At this moment, in the cave abode that they had discovered when they arrived, the disciple, surnamed Chun, was hugging the girl. The girl's clothes were half undone, revealing her snow-white shoulders. The disciple, surnamed Chun, had one hand around the girl's waist and the other around her back, pressing her against him while he buried his head in the girl's chest. Chapter 31:14. Those slender white fingers gradually turned into withered twigs, and sharp claws grew out from the tips of those fingers. Her hand slowly caressed downwards and stopped when it reached his heart. "Senior brother Chun," she coquettishly called out softly, and the blurry enjoyment in her eyes suddenly changed and became bloodthirsty and excited. In the next moment, her sharp claws pierced towards the body of the disciple, surnamed Chun. However, at this moment, the disciple, surnamed Chun, who was lying in front of the woman's chest with a look of enjoyment, was suddenly hit in the back of his knee. His legs went soft, and he knelt down as his body slid downwards. "Junior brother Chun, senior brother." As the disciple, surnamed Chun, slid down, the woman's sharp claws pierced empty air. She was annoyed and was about to grab the person who had slid down to his knees when she felt a murderous aura coming towards her. Pei Zixuan wielded his sword and charged forward. The frontal attack caused the woman to quickly retreat, and at the same time, it gave the disciple, surnamed Chun, time to react. "Senior brother." The other disciple, surnamed Chun, quickly went forward to help him up and retreated to the side. "Senior brother, are you all right?" Fengjiu's lips curled up, and he glanced at him and said unhurriedly, "I'm intoxicated in the land of tenderness. How could anything happen to me?" When the disciple, surnamed Chun, heard this, he couldn't help but lower his head in shame. I'm fine." He was just frightened and didn't expect such a thing to happen. That was clearly a woman. When he looked up, he couldn't help but be stunned. Just a moment ago, she was still a charming beauty, and in the next moment, that beauty had turned into a monster. Her face also changed, and a sinister and seductive aura overflowed. Her body was like an old tree, and her hands and feet gradually turned into tree roots. She is thousand-year tree demon. Fengjiu narrowed his eyes and crossed his arms in front of his chest as he watched from the side. He didn't expect that the moment the restriction disappeared, a monster would take form. Moreover, it was a thousand-year-old tree demon. If he didn't see wrongly just now, this tree demon wanted to suck a person's essence and blood as nourishment. Let me help you. Mu Ling saw that it was difficult for Pei Zishuan to take down the tree demon alone and immediately rushed forward to join the battle. However, the cave dwelling wasn't big and their hands and feet were tied in the battle. Especially for the tree demon, it was even more disadvantageous. Therefore, when the tree branches sprung up from the ground and wrapped around their feet, the tree demon with a human face and body and quickly left the cave dwelling. However, she didn't expect that she was surrounded by Guiziki and the others the moment she left the cave dwelling. Pei Zishuan and Mu Ling cut off the tree branches that were wrapped around their feet and quickly came out, only to see that at this time, the surrounding trees all started to move, attacking them. The tree branches were like ropes, but also like sharp blades, bringing with them a sharp aura. The tree branches swayed chaotically. The trees moved, causing them to be unable to deal with it. Fengjiu didn't make a move. She just watched. When the tree she was leaning on stretched out its branches to wrap around her, she released her suppressive force. Immediately, the branches shrank back and didn't dare to make another move. Chapter 31:15. Therefore, it could be seen that Guiziki and the others were besieging the thousand-year tree demon. The surrounding trees stretched out their branches and joined the battle. The nearby trees were all moving, except for the one that Feng Nine was leaning on, which was motionless. This caused the disciples who were entangled by the many branches to be stunned for a moment. They shouted, "Mu Jio, quickly help! You're nascent soul cultivators after all. If you can't even deal with a thousand-year tree demon, then there's no need for you to continue." Fengjiu said calmly. She took out a fruit from her space and leaned on the tree to eat it while watching them fight. Hearing this, everyone's fighting spirit was aroused. They clenched their teeth and waved their swords and sabers. There were many branches and leaves scattered on the ground, and a thousand-year tree demon was being attacked by Pei Zishuan, Mu Ling, Lin Qingjin, and Yikaiji. Compared to the attacks of the other trees, this thousand-year tree demon's attacks were extremely fierce. Its tree roots suddenly shot up from the ground and attacked them. Every attack was as fierce as a sword. If they could not dodge in time, they would be injured by the fierce aura. Whoosh! Hiss! The fierce sound was heard, followed by a scream. The disciple surnamed Chun could not react in time, and his calf was pierced by a sharp branch. He fell to the ground in an instant. The sharp tip of the branch pulled back and blood splattered on the ground. Senior. When the disciples with the surname Chan saw that their senior brother was injured, they hurriedly came to his side and protected him as they retreated to Mu Jio's body. Although they didn't know why the tree demons didn't dare to attack them, they knew that it was probably the safest to stay by Mu Jio's side. Mu Jio, please take care of our senior. Please. The few disciples bowed to Fengjiu and asked for her help. Before she could say anything, they quickly joined the battle. The disciple, named Chun, sat on the ground, holding his leg that had been pierced by the tree branch. There was a bloody hole there, and the pain was bone-piercing, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. Fengjiu ate the fruit and glanced at it casually. She said as if it had nothing to do with her, "This bleeding has to be stopped quickly. Otherwise, if it continues to bleed like this, he will die." Hearing this, the disciple named Chun raised his head and looked at Mu Jio. He knew in his heart that Mu Jio had brought this upon himself. After all, Mu Jio had warned them long ago and even told them to deal with that woman. He was the one who had protected that woman, but who would have thought? He gritted his teeth and endured the pain. He took out some hemostatic medicine from his chinquin bag and sprinkled it on the wound. Then he tore off a piece of his robe to bandage the wound. After doing all this, he felt as if all the strength in his body had been sucked out. He leaned against a big tree and panted. Perhaps it was because Fengjiu was there, but when the sharp branches reached towards them, they suddenly retracted, as if they were afraid of touching something terrifying. Seeing this, the disciple named Chen's eyes flashed. He looked at Mu Jio, who was leaning against the big tree and eating fruit, and asked, "Why don't those tree demons dare to attack you?" This scene was too strange. No matter how he looked at it, it did not seem right. Fengjiu heard this and smiled slightly. She glanced at the disciple named Chun sitting next to her and said half-truthfully, "That is because they know that I am very dangerous." Chapter 31:16. On the other side, the tree demon saw that it could not gain any advantage and wanted to escape. It dug its roots deep into the ground and burrowed underground. Mu Ling and the rest stabbed their swords into the ground, wanting to cut off its escape route. However, they did not manage to hit it even after several attempts. Seeing this, Feng Jiu's eyes flickered. Seeing that the tree demon was about to escape from this area, she dashed forward in a flash and snatched the sword from Mu Ling's hand. She dashed forward for over 10 meters before stabbing the sword in her hand into the ground with incomparable precision. Swoosh! Ah! When the sharp sword she attacked, a shrill scream was heard. When the scream was heard, the tree branch that was buried in the ground suddenly jumped out of the ground. The human-faced tree demon's body trembled and convulsed. Its bloodthirsty eyes stared at Fengjiu, who had stabbed its body, as if questioning her why she had cut off its escape route. The tree demon was very clear that if not for this human, it would definitely be able to escape. However, who knew that she would still attack in the end? Because of the hatred and violence in its heart, it used all its strength to shoot out more than 10 sharp branches and attack Fengjiu. "Cut off my escape route. Even if I die, I will drag you down with me. You overestimate yourself." Fengjiu glanced coldly at it. She moved the spiritual power in her hand, and a flame suddenly appeared. The flame traveled from her hand to the sword in her hand. As she turned around and attacked, the branches were all burned and withered. The fire quickly burned the tree demon's body. Only a blood-curdling scream could be heard as the flames burned. Ah! The blood-curdling screams gradually became softer, and the aura surging in the air also dispersed with the breeze. As the intensity of the fire gradually decreased, until it was extinguished, a green crystal core that shone like an emerald appeared on the ground. Fengjiu went forward and picked up the fist-sized green crystal core. A smile appeared on her face. The wood attribute crystal core of a 1,000-year tree demon was also good for her. The surrounding people were already stunned. They had been busy for half a day, but they could not compare to Mu Jio's sword. When the tree demon disappeared, the surrounding trees that had been controlled by the demonic power also returned to normal. However, they all stood there in a daze and did not know what to say for a long time. Why was he so powerful? Why was he so strong? He could find the tree demon's body the moment he attacked and stabbed the tree demon's body, causing it to be unable to escape. Among the crowd, besides Mu Ling, who already knew Fengjiu's identity, even Pei Zixuan and Lin Qingjin could not digest the scene in front of them. They knew that Mu Jio was very strong, but the scenes that gradually unfolded were even more surprising than what they had expected. Roar! Before they could recover from their shock, a deep roar suddenly rang out. A powerful pressure spread out in the forest along with the roar, causing their hearts to jump. Divine beast, that was definitely the aura of a divine beast. It's to Jio. Chapter 31:17. Come this way. Follow me. Fengjiu shouted and quickly led them away. The disciple with the injured calf was supported by 2 of the Chun clan brothers as they followed closely behind the group. However, when they quickly flew for nearly 100 meters, suddenly, a roar came from behind them. That roar was like the roar of the king of hell, causing people's hearts to tremble, especially the two people who were supporting the injured disciple, surnamed Chun. Cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. As they were supporting the disciple, their speed was slowed down and they were about 20 meters behind the people in front of them. When they looked back, they saw a cloud-swallowing divine beast roaring as it chased after them about 100 meters behind them. They were so frightened that they cried out and instinctively ran at an unprecedented speed. "Quick, run quickly! That's a cloud-swallowing divine beast." Feng Jiu, who was leading the way, raised his eyebrows when he heard the voice behind him. Cloud-swallowing divine beast? Was it real or fake? Her cloud-swallowing divine beast was still single. If it had a similar species, she could find a partner for it. Thinking of this, she slowed down and said to Mu Ling, "Lead them forward." With that, she walked toward the back. Mu Ling was about to speak when he saw that she was already about 20 meters behind. He was puzzled and didn't know what she was going to do. However, because he knew that the beast behind them was difficult to deal with, he quickly led them forward. Feng Jiu came to the back and gradually slowed down. When he looked behind him, he was instantly delighted. It really was a cloud-swallowing divine beast, and it was a female one. It had already reached the 7th level of a divine beast. She who was about to attack smiled and said to cloud-swallowing divine beast in her space, "There's also a cloud-swallowing divine beast outside. It's a female divine beast. Do you want to come out and take a look? Do you want to conquer it yourself?" Fortunately, the restriction had disappeared. Otherwise, her contracted beast would not have been able to come out. Hearing this, cloud-swallowing divine beast, who was originally resting in the space, lazily turned over and said, "Master, I'm not interested. Come out and take a look. Maybe you'll be interested." With that, Feng Jiu waved his sleeve and summoned cloud-swallowing divine beast out of the space. When cloud-swallowing divine beast appeared beside her in a flash of light, the female divine beast that was charging towards Feng Jiu was stunned. It saw the majestic male divine beast turn its head arrogantly and looked down at it with a condescending gaze. Then the majestic male divine beast leaped forward and knocked the female divine beast back. Roar! Bang! The female divine beast roar, cloud-swallowing divine beast, and cloud-swallowing divine beast. The female divine beast was knocked to the ground. A long time. Feng Jiu glanced at him and shook her head. "How can you be so unkind to a woman? It's a mother beast after all." Cloud-swallowing divine beast looked at its master speechlessly. It really did not know what its master was thinking. After the female divine beast stood up, it stared at the majestic male divine beast in front of it. Its bloodthirsty eyes gradually turned into curiosity. "Where did you come from?" the female divine beast asked. The cloud-swallowing divine beast was already an extinct beast. Even in this place, it was the only one. Where did this male divine beast come from? He was already at the level of a divine beast. Chapter 31:18. Tunyin raised its head arrogantly and glanced at the mother beast. It did not answer its question, but looked at Feng Jiu instead. "Master, do you want me to stay by your side and protect you? You don't like this mother beast?" Feng Jiu blinked and asked. He glanced at the unmoving mother beast and smiled mysteriously. It seems that her Tunyun's charm was not to be underestimated. Tunyun said helplessly, "Master, the higher the level of the beast, the harder it is for them to conceive offspring. Even if they have a partner, they will not be able to reproduce." It had never thought of finding a partner. Feng Jiu chuckled. "Have you forgotten what your master does? Don't worry. As long as you find a partner, I have a way for you to have offspring." Hearing those words, Tunyin glanced at her, then at the mother beast not far away. He did not say anything, but with a flash of light, he shrunk back into his little beast form and followed Feng Jiu. Not far away, the mother beast saw this and couldn't help but take 2 steps forward. However, she stopped as if she had thought of something. She stared blankly as the majestic male beast shrunk into a small ball. In the end, she also shrunk into a ball and followed behind them from afar. Tunyon walked towards the mother beast and asked in a low voice, "Do you want to die? Hurry up and leave this place." The mother beast was very happy to see Tunyon talking to it. "Where did you come from? How can you be a sacred beast?" Tunyon said fiercely, "It's none of your business. It's my contracted beast. It's rare to see a mother beast that's also a Tunyon. Are you interested in becoming a pair with it?" Fengjiu asked the mother beast with a smile. The mother beast's eyes lit up when heard this. The male beast was majestic and handsome. He looked strong and majestic. The mother beast took a liking to him at first sight and said, "I'm willing." Fengjiu looked at Tunyon and smiled. It was as if he was saying, "Look, this mother beast has taken a liking to you. If that's the case, then follow me. You can shrink a little and follow me with Tunyon." Fengjiu joked, deliberately giving the two beasts a chance to interact. The mother beast had no objections and shrunk to Tunyon's size. She walked up to Tunyon and asked, "Why don't you have a partner? Are there no other cloud-swallowing beasts in other places?" It had originally thought that if it could not find a suitable partner, it would stay in the cave by itself. It did not expect such a powerful cloud-swallowing beast to suddenly appear. Sacred beasts were rarely seen in this place. Its strength was really strong. It was so powerful that it did not dare to act presumptuously in front of it. "I still have teammates. When we get there, the two of you should not speak in human language. At the same time, hide your own strength. Do not arouse their suspicion and guess," Fengjiu instructed. He glanced at the two small, cloud-swallowing beasts at his feet. After they nodded, he walked forward and caught up with Mu Ling and the rest. Mu Ling had been running forward with his teammates, while keeping an eye on the commotion behind him. When he sensed that the commotion behind him had calmed down, he heaved a sigh of relief. He stopped and said to everyone, "Let's wait here for Mu Jio to come back." Chapter 31:19. "It's Mu Jio. Mu Jio is back," Guaziki said excitedly. However, just as he finished speaking, he saw the two little beasts behind Mu Jio and was surprised. "Why are there two little beasts?" Everyone looked over and saw that there were indeed two little beasts behind Mu Jio. As they could not tell the level of the two little beasts, they turned their attention to Mu Jio. "Mu Jio, where's the godly beast? Why isn't it chasing after us?" "It left," Fengjiu said. "Rest for a while. There shouldn't be any problems in this area." Hearing this, everyone responded and found a place to sit down. However, each of them had a bellyful of questions, but they didn't know how to ask. "Sister, how's your injury?" Lin Qingjin looked at his sister and asked. Seeing that her sleeve was still stained with blood, he said, "Let me help you bandage your wound." "Brother, it's fine. I've already applied medicine, and the bleeding has stopped." As Lin Yushur spoke, she casually bandaged her wound and stood up to bandage the wounds of the others. "Brother, your shoulder is injured and you can't apply medicine yourself. Let me help you." She walked forward and took out medicine as she spoke. "Okay." Lin Qingjin agreed and took off his shirt, revealing the wound inside. After Lin Yushur helped him treat the wound, she applied medicine and bandaged it. Then, she helped him put on his clothes. "I'll go take a look at the others." Disciple Chin sat. The pain in his calf caused cold sweat to seep out of his forehead. He looked at Mu Ling and the rest, then looked at Mu Jio, who had his arms crossed and his eyes closed, as well as the two little beasts squatting beside him. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, "My leg's injury is quite serious. I think it will be difficult for me to walk. I want to go out first and give up this opportunity to train." He paused and said, "Mu Jio, I'm sorry. I was wrong this time. I shouldn't have doubted your words and shouldn't have urged the girl to stay." "It's fine," Fengjiu said casually. After all, she was not the one injured. Disciple Chin's lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He could tell that Mu Jio did not mind. Hence, he looked down and pinched the teleportation jade tablet at his waist. "Everyone, thank you for taking care of me these past few days. Take care." As soon as he finished speaking, He crushed the teleportation jade token. With a flash of light, he disappeared on the spot. Everyone was silent as they watched him leave. One of them had already left. Would there be more people who would leave in the future? That night, the atmosphere was a little heavy, and no one said anything. Only at dawn the next day, after resting, everyone continued their training. At this moment, they didn't know that as the restriction loosened, the four sects had also sent many venerables in to search for the disciples inside, so that they could leave the secret realm as soon as possible. Perhaps it was because Tunyon was following behind them, but from that day onwards, they basically did not encounter any more vicious beasts. Even if they did, those vicious beasts would quickly leave after roaming around. This strange scene made them feel very puzzled. However, they thought that it was all because of Mujio. Therefore, they made many guesses about his identity along the way. Chapter 31:20. On this day, Lin Xingjin and Pei Zixuan used the opportunity of hunting to pull Mu Ling to the side. Do you know his identity? Hearing this, Mu Ling's eyes flashed and instinctively shook his head. I don't know. You don't know? That's impossible. We saw a huge change in your attitude along the way. Pei Zixuan said, obviously not believing his words. Hearing this, Mu Ling sighed. Don't ask anymore. Even if I know, I can't say. If I could, I would have said it long ago. He sighed helplessly and said to the two, let's go back quickly. The three of us have come out. They must be anxious from waiting. As he spoke, he did not wait for them to speak and quickly walked back. Seeing this, Pei Zixuan and Lin Xingjin looked at each other. Looks like he really knows. Furthermore, Mujio's identity is probably not ordinary. Ever since the restriction here loosened, we have not met a single beast along the way. Even if we met one, those beasts did not come close and quickly left as if they were afraid of something. The two of them chatted for a while before heading back. When they came to the resting area, they saw Mujio leaning against a tree to rest, while the two little beasts were squatting on the left and right sides of the tree branches. Mu Ling and the rest were preparing to roast meat. As time passed, the aroma of the meat filled the air. At this moment, a group of people walked out from the front. Seeing the group of 30 to 40 people quietly surrounding them, Mu Ling and the rest stood up cautiously. I was wondering where the aroma of the meat came from. So it's the people from Blue Star Immortal Sect roasting meat here. Looks like they knew that we were coming and prepared this meat for us. A man from the other party crossed his arms and hugged his sword as he stared at them. His gaze swept across them and sized up Mu Ling and the rest. Are you going to leave the things behind? Or do you need us to do it ourselves? The other party looked at Mu Ling and the rest mockingly. When his gaze swept past Gretchen's face, he revealed an inexplicable smile. Junior Sister Wan, long time no see. Hearing this, Lin Yusher asked softly, Senior Sister Guan, you know him? Gretchen looked at that person and her expression changed slightly. She lightly bit her lips and did not speak, but her hands and her sleeves were tightly clenched into fists. When the others saw that Gretchen's expression wasn't very good, they couldn't help but feel astonished. Did Gretchen really know this person? But what was their relationship? Why was the way the two of them looked at each other so strangely? Of course I know her. I'm her fiancé. As the man spoke, he looked at Gretchen with an evil smile on his face. I think the Guan clan has already informed you, right? Since we've met here, shouldn't we take the opportunity to cultivate our relationship? I didn't agree to this marriage. You have nothing to do with me. Gretchen said coldly. Under her sleeves, her fists were tightly clenched. She was trying her best to control her emotions. When the disciples behind him heard this, they all laughed out loud. Ha ha ha! Senior Brother Wong, is this really your fiancé? Why is she talking to you like that? Is she looking down on you? Senior Marshal Brother Wong, you're not following your husband's orders. What do you mean by lacking in moral integrity? Didn't you hear what that junior sister said? She has nothing to do with Senior Brother Wong. The disciples behind her mocked as they looked at Gretchen. Chapter 31:21. Impolite? Huh? How impolite? How can you be impolite to us? A man raised his eyebrows and smiled evilly. Senior brothers and junior brothers, listen to them. They actually said that they would be impolite to us? They really don't take us seriously. Do you think we should teach them a lesson? Do you think we're sick cats if we don't show our might? A man stood out and sneered at Mu Ling and the others. You're disciples of the fourth sex, after all. How about this? Don't say that we're bullying you because we outnumber you. Let's have a one-on-one battle. The loser has to hand over everything he has. How about that? Mu Ling and the others' eyes flashed. They thought it would be a group battle. They didn't expect this person to propose such an idea. The outcome of a one-on-one battle was uncertain. However, they couldn't guarantee that these people would be angry after losing. Thus, Mu Ling, Pei Zixuan, and Lin Qingjin looked at each other. Then, Lin Qingjin smiled and walked forward. A one-on-one battle? I'm afraid you can't afford to lose. Hearing this, the man's face darkened. What do you mean? You're saying we can't afford to lose? Oomph. Looks like you're very confident. Isn't that so? If this is a one-on-one battle and you lose, you'll be angry and attack us. Isn't that child's play? Lin Qingjin chuckled and glanced at them. I don't think you're men who keep your promises. Hearing this, everyone's eyes flashed. They could guess the other party's intentions. However, if they went back on their words, wouldn't that mean that they couldn't afford to lose? Couldn't beat them? Which supremacy of the cerulean planet are you the disciple of? You're quite brave, aren't you? The man sized him up. My master is CK, Lin Qingjin said. Oh, so you're the disciple of supremacy C. Quebec. I'll have to learn from you then. The man said to the people behind him. Senior brothers and junior brothers, do they think we don't dare to fight one-on-one? They even provoked us with words. Do you think we dare to fight one-on-one with them? Ha ha ha. Who's afraid of who? If we fight one-on-one, we'll be cowards. That's right. We've had a lot of group fights along the way. Let's have a one-on-one fight. I like to see what's so great about the blue planet. Finally, the man with the surname Wang walked out and stated, I'll go first. His gaze swept over the crowd and landed on Gretchen. Junior Sister Guan, what do you think about it? Are you sure you want to go first? You're my fiancé, so why don't we have a friendly match? Gretchen gritted her teeth. Just when she was about to step forward, Pei Zixuan pressed down on her shoulder. He walked forward and said, Junior Sister Guan is a female. You are a man fighting against a female. Even if you win, it would be an unfair victory. I am her eldest senior brother. How about I challenge you first in this battle? The man with the surname Wang didn't force the issue. After all, it wouldn't be outstanding even if he won against a woman. However, it would be a different story if he won against Venerable Sikh's eldest disciple, Pei Zixuan. He sized up Pei Zixuan with a glance and curled his lips into a cold smile. All right, since you want to take the lead, then I'll accept your challenge. Let's see what you're capable of. As he spoke, he walked forward. Pei Zixuan also walked forward. He raised his hand and gestured for the people behind him to step back and make space for them. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.